of a gavel. We're good.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the gavels with the.
That's all right.
Sorry.
No, all good.
That'll
All
be your
right.
nickname from now, like gavel.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first official meeting of the Franklin Conservation Commission for 2024. We're happy to have everybody here today. The Conservation Commission is available to be attended in person and via the Zoom platform. In an effort to ensure citizen engagement and comply with open meeting law regulations, citizens will be able to dial into meetings using the provided phone number on our agenda, or to click on the link below to join Zoom. They can copy and paste the URL on if required, or you can call 929-205-6099, and our meeting number is 889-2796-6925. If you're having trouble accessing through the link, please call on your phone and use *6 to toggle between mute and unmute, and *9 to raise your hand. If you do wish to attend in person, the meeting is being held on the council chambers, second floor of the municipal building. We'll go ahead and start with our roll call.
Wetland flag 4849. As I understand it, at the last meeting, you all discussed a site visit for the new year. That site visit was scheduled for this week, but given current weather events and site conditions, we're waiting for those to improve and have since postponed our site visit. So more details to follow.
All right. Well, then we will-
May I question at this point?
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Giovanni.
My question is, if somebody can tell me in small words what the
John, I'm sorry.
difference-
John, just for the record, for our person who's taking our minutes, can you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure, sorry.
No, that's okay.
John Detterman, 86 Palomino Drive.
Thank you, John.
So I was doing a compare between the last drawing and the one that's available online. And I wonder if somebody can just high level tell me what the differences are.
Sure, John, I can answer that. So the difference are between the UA series. So if you look, do you have the plan in front of you right now?
I do.
Okay. So if you look central to kind of central right on the plan, I believe it's in a green outline, you will see little dots, and those labels are UA dash a number.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So that is what the applicant is proposing as an upland island. So we have the delineation of the wetland on the outside, and then we have a small delineation on the inside to delineate an upland island within that wetland complex. So that series, that boundary line, that series of numbers has changed. On the revised plan, the applicant has grayed out where the old flags for that UA series has been.
Okay.
So you should be able to track, that change. And then additionally, if you were to look along the wetland boundary, which is denoted by WF, so wetland flag dash number, you will see changes around wetland flag 48 and 49, which is in the upper right.
Thank you very much. So the objective of the site walk is to come to consensus with those proposed changes.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, John. Did you have any other questions?
I do not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And are there any other questions from the public, as this is a public hearing?
I have a question, and my name is Joni McGee, 36 Palomino Drive. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One of which was, if the meeting was for tonight, the conditions were walkable today. It's wet because it's wetlands, but it wasn't snow covered. And I just feel the applicant doesn't show up for meetings since April, but as neighbors, there's probably 4 or 5 of us on. We're constantly coming to meetings, and it's constantly being continued, and it's frustrating and it just doesn't show, I think, good community effort for our neighbor.
Yeah, Joni, I certainly understand your frustration. So it is a little bit complicated as far as, I do agree that, certainly things were a bit more dry today, thankfully. But this isn't the only project, unfortunately, that both Beta and our agent are looking at. So they do have to go, through a process, and they have a schedule of different projects that they're looking at altogether. So I think unfortunately with everyone's schedules today wouldn't quite align. And I know we have more upcoming weather the next few days. So I do know they are doing their best to get out there as soon as possible. I certainly feel your frustrations because I know that you guys are showing up every week. I can certainly have Bricolai make sure that Bricolai, do you mind actually reaching out to the applicant and just make sure someone is here to give us an update for the next meeting? And hopefully we will have that site walk in between now and then so we can have some further information and get these lines confirmed. Yes, go right ahead.
Just, again, for the record, just as an educational piece, please keep in mind that it is actually potentially greatly disadvantageous for an applicant to continuing a hearing. And the reason why is that there is a rule that if, over the course of the continuations, if there are certain members that of the commission aren't there for a certain number of meetings, then basically what happens is that you start to etch away your your quorum, and essentially you end up with not having enough quorum members to actually vote on a matter, thereby the matter is typically declined. So you actually can essentially get voted out by too many continuations if indeed it turns out that members, such as like Mark tonight, couldn't appear, and then ultimately over time, people become essentially ineligible to vote. So there are certain, I guess it's not really much, it doesn't, I agree with you that it's frustrating for people that don't show up for hearings. We've had that problem in the past. We've made points about it in our meetings and in our conservation commissions. We strongly encourage people to come and to be present at least. So please understand that we share that frustration, but there is a downside to them doing this. It isn't just they get a free pass and they can continue for the rest of their lives. That's not how it typically works.
I believe it's 2 meetings.
I think so,
If
yeah.
a member misses 2 meetings,
Then it's-
you can no longer vote on
Right,
it.
correct.
So if it drags on and
Right.
several people miss,
Then
they have
you
to start
a
all
quorum.
over again.
Yeah, then you default, sorry, yeah.
Bricolai, did you have something to add as well?
Yeah, just to clarify, it's 2 meetings where there's a discussion.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, part of the discussion,
Yeah.
yes.
Hi, I have a question, follow up, please.
Renata, just give me just a moment, because I think, Joni, you said you had a couple questions. Was there anything else we could help clarify for you?
No, I think it was the confusion. Have we had a discussion? Because the applicant has never come to any of the meetings.
Yeah, so earlier last year, the applicant has attended, they presented the project, and we did discuss revised site conditions. So there have been presentations, but to your point, the applicant did file March 2nd of 2023. So it has been quite a while since they've been in front of us.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joni. And thanks, Renata, for your patience. Go right ahead.
Yeah, sure, thank you. This is Renata Gilarova. I am at 38 Palomino Drive. I just have a follow-up question on the revised plan. I think it's for Brika then. So I saw the original plan where the upland is, there was just upland, right? On the revised plan, there seems to be a wetland within the upland. Is it correct understanding that that's there's a whole green new circle of wetland flags within the upland area?
So that green line that you're seeing, that is what the applicant is proposing is the revised upland. So to communicate the timeline of events to everybody, the applicant filed the ANRAD John and I both went out, reviewed the delineation separately, and then met with a representative of the applicant on site to review the boundary lines. We had met an agreement with the presiding wetland scientist on the project for the revised lines, but somehow, somewhere in the past 6 to 9 months, internally the applicant has discussed those revised boundary lines and has since gone out and amended their submitted boundary lines. So we are going back to review what they are submitting to likely reach the same determination of what our third-party review, John Miro here on Zoom, and I determined last spring. So what they have presented is not what has been verified 100% yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Renata. Did you have any other questions?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. And was there anyone else in the public that had a question or comment? Great. With that,
Hi.
oh, sorry. Go right ahead.
I'm sorry. Blanca DiGiacomo. I live in 160 Beach Street, right across the street from the home. And I'm curious, how long does this process continue if the applicant doesn't show?
So technically speaking, you can continue something for quite a long period of time. We don't have anticipation of that happening. That's certainly nothing that we like to see from our perspective. We want to make sure that the applicants are actually working on their projects, and if not, we certainly can deny the project for insufficient information. At this point, though, we do see that the applicant is actively working with our agent and our consultant of Beta to get out on the property to actually re-review these lines that they've submitted. So as long as we see that they're continuing to work on the project and we feel that it's progressing, we will continue with the project. As we've said, we're going to request that the applicant does actually come to the next meeting to be able to give us an update, regardless of what work has been done at this point. Just to show good faith, to the community as well, will be important. But we certainly don't have intentions of continuing this without seeing any progression. Does that answer your question, Blanca?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I
That's right,
appreciate you explaining
Yeah,
that.
you're right. Remember, the commission has no obligation to continue anything, right? We decide whether it's continued or not. I mean, they can request a continuation, we can just simply deny it if we decide that, look, it's gone on months, we haven't seen anything, they've never shown up, there's no good faith. And that has happened in the past, and that has happened. It's rare, but it has happened.
Yeah. But as long as we do feel they are continuing to actively work on the project and communicate, with our agent and with us, then we will let it continue as long as it's making progress to hopefully come to a conclusion in the near future. Any other questions?
Right, great.
Thanks, Blanca.
Thanks for your answer.
Oh, you're so welcome. Any other questions or comments from the public? Great, and with that, can I have a motion to continue our ANRAD for 1 Paddock Lane?
I'll give you a motion to continue the ANRAD for 1 Paddock Lane to January 25th at 7:01.
Second.
And Richard, do you want to start our vote?
I vote to continue.
Vote to continue.
Vote to continue.
Continue?
Continue.
And the ANRAD for 1 Paddock Lane is continued to January 25th at 7:01 p.m. With that, we'll open our next NOI for 15 Liberty Way. We have had a request from the applicant to continue our NOI for 15 Liberty Way. Rika, is there any update that you wanted to provide to the commission at this point?
Sure, I can give a brief update. So I did outline outstanding items in your agent report. This is an accumulation of Beta comments and then some of my own. Given that the applicant is not here, I will say that the applicant did request a continuance specifically to be able to respond to most of these comments. So if the commission were to defer to the agent report, you will see comments about the plan set. So the existing conditions appear to depict buffer zones, however, they're not labeled, or buffer zones are cast from non-jurisdictional swales where they don't need to be cast from non-jurisdictional swales. Buffer zones are not carried throughout different plan sheets within the plan set. A big item to note is that compliance with the Mass Stormwater Standards has not been demonstrated yet. The commission is still being asked for variance requests to be able to fill IBW, work in the 0 to 25 foot no touch zone, and increase impervious pavement within the 25 to 50 foot buffer zone. Most of the comments do revolve around that variance request and deferring to the commission if the mitigation that the applicant is providing is sufficient to grant the variance. But as I mentioned, the applicant did request a continuance, so.
Great. Well, I think we will then leave our discussion since the applicant is not here, unless there are any comments from the commission. And any comments or questions from the public, as this is a public hearing? All right, well then let's go ahead and can I have a motion to continue the NOI for 15 Liberty Way?
I'll give you a motion to continue the NOI 15 Liberty Way to January 25th, 7:02.
Second.
And Richard, how do you vote?
Vote to continue.
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 Continue?
Continue.
Great, so the NOI for 15 Liberty Way is continued till January 25th at 7:02 p.m. And I will now open the NOI for 0 Upper Union Street Solar. Do we have a representative from 0 Upper Union? We do.
Yes, good evening, Rich Jabozinski with Atlantic Design Engineers. And also, Andrew Tebow is here from Goddard Associates, and I believe on line Dan Solazaro from Balta Energy should be online, but I'm not sure if I can see all the names there, but.
Yep, he's on there.
Okay, great. So we're basically here to give you an update from our last meeting, which was on December 14th. I believe all the issues were addressed at that time, except for some minor stormwater comments left over from Beta's review, and those were since addressed and completed. The revised sets of plans, resubmitted those, and took care of all the comments from Beta. We had a planning board meeting on Monday, and they were satisfied with the plans and the calculations and all the submittals that were completed. They didn't close their hearing. They basically said they wanted to make sure the Conservation Commission was okay with everything before they closed their hearing. So that was continued till February. But other than that, I guess we're here to just see if there's any remaining comments from anyone, and we're here to address anything that you might have, but we feel we've addressed all of the peer review comments and other previous comments that were received over the process here.
Great. Thanks, Rich. Bricola, do you have any comments?
Yes, before I move into actual project comments, I do have to disclose that in December, I was voted as chair of the Society Wetland Scientist Outreach Committee, and Andrew and John are both on it. So I just ethically needed to disclose that we are on a subcommittee outside of regular Franklin Conservation Commission work. So knowing that the applicant has met all outstanding comments on a conservation side and with Massachusetts stormwater standards. So I have drafted conditions if the commission would like to hear them. But other than that, I will defer it back to you for public comment.
Great, and any comments or questions from the commission? And Free-Glide, thanks for the disclosure. I think it's great that everyone's so involved in wetland science and helping to progress wetland science and protecting our environment. So thank you all for your work on the commission with that. Great, so I know I have in the agent report the special conditions, so I think I can, unless you want to read them yourself, Rico, I'm happy to just read them in for the record, but. All right, so if we have no comments for us, we are, I think, going to go ahead and recommend approval with our standard special conditions 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 43, 44, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, and 51. And then also to include special condition 52, that the applicant shall provide a proposed native seed mixture with species names and ratios to the conservation agent and commission prior to construction, and the agent and commission shall approve the seed mixture prior to seeding. And as well as special condition 53, the internal stream within the A series wetland is considered intermittent and its associated bank was not delineated or approved as part of this project. The proposed work is not near nor within any jurisdictional boundaries associated with this bank. Rich, any comment, and Andrew, any comments or questions from on the conditions required?
None here, nope.
Okay,
Yep, I'll go to my end as well, thank you.
great, thanks, Andrew. With that.
Chair Hagan?
Oh, yes.
Sorry, I would recommend also approving the variance request.
Oh, thank you, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, and the variance request to fill the IVW as well. So with that, can I have a motion to close our NOI for 0 Upper Union Street Solar?
One question first.
Yes.
There is a recommendation to continue to January 11th. Should that be struck?
Yeah, I think that was just a,
Okay.
yeah.
May I give you a recommendation to close the NOI for 0 Upper Union Street Solar?
Second?
And Richard, how do you vote?
Vote to close.
Vote to close.
Vote to close.
Vote to close.
Close?
Close.
So the NOI for 0 Upper Union Street Solar is closed. And can I have a motion to approve the NOI for 0 Upper Union Street Solar?
I'll give you a motion to approve the NOI for 0 Upper Union Street Solar.
Second.
Thanks, Jeff.
Vote to approve.
Approve.
Vote to approve.
Approve.
Approve?
Vote to approve.
All right, so the NOI for 0 Upper Union Street Solar is approved.
Okay,
Thank you all.
thank you very much.
Does that
Appreciate it.
include
Yes,
the,
thank you for all your time with this one, appreciate it.
You're welcome. We appreciate you going back and forth with it. Right, you're gonna go ahead and open up the NOI for 124, 126 Grove Street. We do have a request from the applicant to continue, so I'm assuming that there is no one here for that. Ricolai, do you have any specific updates that you wanted to share other than what's on the agent report?
No, none at this time.
And any comments or questions from the commission this time? And any comments from the public for 124, 126 Grove Street? All right, with that, I will take a motion to continue the ANRAD for 124, 126 Grove Street.
I'll give you a motion to continue the NRAD for 124, 126 Grove Street to January 25th, 7:04 p.m.
7:03.
7:03?
Yeah,
We
seven.
skipped the last one.
Yep,
I'll second that.
thanks, Richard. And Richard, how do you vote?
Vote to continue.
Jeff, how do you vote? And vote to continue.
Continue.
continue?
Continue.
All right, the ANRAD for 124, 126 Grove Street is continued to January 25th at 7:03 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and recuse myself from this one.
Okay, I'm going to stand in for Megan. So I'd like to open up the ANRAD for the Tri-County Regional Vocational Technical High School. We have a recommendation here to continue, but first we'll find out what's going on. Brika, do you have any update?
I do have an update, but I would actually defer to John Nero with Beta since there was a work session that occurred while I was on my leave.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. John Nero here from Beta. So I believe the commission is fairly familiar at this point with both the first and second peer review letters that Beta issued. We did meet the applicant in the field prior to issuing our second letter. I would say there really weren't that many requested changes to the flagged boundaries across the site. I think there were about maybe half a dozen small changes in flagging. Those were resolved in the field to the satisfaction of both myself and Brika Lai. Where things kind of left off is primarily, as you may recall, based around that solar field at the eastern extent of the site. So we had gone out previously and identified several resource areas in and around that solar field. Many of which are sort of relict stormwater features that were constructed when the solar field went in. And so we took a, kind of a deep dive into things and, offered up our opinion, which was that, essentially all of these features could be considered jurisdictional by the commission under the bylaw. And all the features except for one could be considered exempt as wetlands under the Wetlands Protection Act due to them being stormwater features. The one that we had recommended considering jurisdictional under the Act was a basin in the southwestern corner of that solar field that, based on record plans and some historic information we pulled up, was not constructed in accordance with the proposed design plans and has since essentially reverted to a functional wetland. So we did, after issuing that letter, I did come before you folks, summarized it, and then the applicant did reach out to Brian during Brika Lai's absence to request kind of a working session just to go over the letter and where things are at right now and a path forward. So that was attended by myself, Brian Taberner from Planning, and Mark LePage attended on behalf of the commission as well. And that meeting essentially was just kind of going through, the outstanding issues with several members of the team, some of which hadn't yet been involved in the process, at least in talking with Beta and the commission. So it was good for them to get up to speed. And then we all, kind of talked through some potential paths forward. I'm sure the applicant can speak more to that tonight. But what essentially, and I, want to be fair to the applicant by passing along that, time is of the essence to them on this project, which is why they do want to figure out the best path forward. They are up against, funding and things of that nature. So there's a few different options that were floating around. The applicant and us discussed, potentially approving portions of the site at this time, and then the rest would be resource area boundaries would be approved when the notice of intent for some development at the site is filed. And then we also discussed the option that I understand to be preferable to the commission is to get everything squared away now. That way the ANRAD is complete and the applicant has all the information they need going forward. We did discuss, the future proposed project a bit just because it is very public and everyone is aware of it. But we did focus the conversations primarily on the ANRAD that's before the commission now. Beta, myself, did offer up if the applicant did want to go ahead and comprehensively flag everything or locate everything that's left to do in and around the solar field. I'd be happy to coordinate with them, after we submit and have an amendment to our scope approved so that I can go out with them. We can get everything done in one day and they're not stuck, getting information over to us and then waiting for us to get something back to them. So that's the gist of the meeting. With that, I would turn it back to the commission for further discussion.
Are there any questions or additional?
Thanks.
Rika,
So
do
we
you have?
have
Well, good, good.
one functional wetland.
Mhm,
The rest is
mhm,
non-jurisdictional.
mhm.
But the functional wetland was created
Yes,
because somebody left a hole.
yes.
Okay.
Very similar to those, subdivisions that make the whole verse go away, come back, want to start the
All
project.
of a sudden,
Yeah.
it's a wetland.
Right, you got it.
Gotta be
Same
careful
thing.
where you drill your holes.
Rika, do you have anything else?
I do. I guess I mirror what John said about the applicant is under significant time constraints. And since we all know the project, we all know what's coming down the pipeline, no pun intended. To that point, I just want to appeal to the commission about the ANRAD process, where it may seem a long drawn out process by the applicant. It also protects them in the future. You know, we're not kicking the can down the road, so to speak, and they are able to design the project around these identified resource areas now instead of waiting, 6 months down the road.
Right.
Hmm.
True. Well, I think at this point, it makes sense to continue. I'll take a motion to continue.
Actually,
Yes?
may I speak?
Yeah. Good.
So I am here. It's
Okay,
it's my
sorry.
first time in person in front of
Okay.
you. It's nice to meet you.
Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name's Steve Powers. I'm a civil engineer. We are with Samiotis Consultants. I know I have Brad Holmes from ECR. He is the wetland scientist for the project. I'm sure I have a couple other members of the project team that are on Zoom right now. John's summary pretty much took my presentation. I agree with it almost entirely. I did bring a board tonight just to kind of outline the few areas that John and Beta had noted along with Bricolai during our site visits, in those areas within the solar field that were intended to be stormwater infrastructure that acknowledged, we agree with them. There are hydrologic features to it, along with wetlands plantings in there, so we're not arguing that. We are moving forward with acknowledging and accepting Beta's recommendations and Bricolai's as well within the peer review letter, and planning on going out and delineating that and making sure we'll do the best we can to try to get a comprehensive ANRAD and an ORAD in place before we move forward with the notice of intent that, again, as both Bricolai and John had stated, we are moving forward at a breakneck pace to submit to the commission and then present the project. Because this is specifically for the delineation on site, I will stick to that. The one item I would like to, so that working session was twofold. One, to talk a little bit through the recommendations within the peer review letter with John and town representatives to just kind of get some feedback. And the result of that was a recommendation to come in front of the commission tonight to sort of get some, to essentially reiterate what John said, but also get a little bit of direction for the delineation that we're planning on doing. And just to address Mr. Johnson's question about the hole in the ground, it is a hole in the ground. It was intended to be a stormwater management piece of the infrastructure there, but part of the finding additional ledge on site and the plan of actually having a stormwater management infrastructure in that corner of the solar field was moved and reconfigured and was never, I guess, followed up with the solar field company to get it reapproved by the planning board as a stormwater infrastructure. And then on top of that, it was installed in 2016. Over that time, it wasn't managed properly, and therefore that is Beta's reasoning for not considering stormwater management infrastructure and therefore subject to the stormwater, the Wetlands Protection Act. So I just want to provide a little context to that. I guess the main reason I am in front of you tonight is to talk about the delineation. The bordering vegetated wetlands that will be delineated in the southwest corner is pretty straightforward. Brad can, from ECR, will be able to do that, and I appreciate John's offer to meet them out on the site, so everything could be done comprehensively, and we can relocate or locate those and submit a formal and final documentation for the ORAD. The area in the northwest corner, that was determined and agreed on by John to be a jurisdictional wetland under the bylaw. And there were a number of drainage ditches which are considered under the bylaw isolated vegetated wetlands. So these two areas, I think, are pretty straightforward as far as the delineation goes. We're in front of the commission tonight, and I wanted to get some direction. We will be going out and flagging these isolated vegetated wetlands under the bylaw in the near future. What we wanted to do is find an equitable, get some feedback from the commission on how best to do that without putting hundreds of flags out into the solar field for those particular areas. So one suggestion that we had, actually Brad Holmes had it, was possibly when he is out on site with John from Beta, maybe flagging the ends of the drainage ditches that are determined to be isolated vegetated wetlands under the bylaw with, say, a 3-foot wide trench, or calling it something a little simpler for to be represented on the plan and for us to pick up. We are also the surveyors for the project too, to put on the final plan for the ORAD and document it that way. So that is one part of the discussion that we wanted to present to the commission tonight and get some feedback.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Agreed.
Simplicity, yeah.
Agreed.
What are we gonna accomplish by going out and sticking a bunch of flags in the ground? As long as we know where we're going,
Okay.
I think that'd be appropriate.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
That'd be great.
Anything further?
Curious Brika Lai's opinion.
Brika, anything else?
That's fine.
Okay.
That's pretty standard. Sorry to have missed you in person, Steve.
I'm sure we'll be seeing each other again very soon. No worries,
Okay.
we missed you.
So without,
How much,
yeah,
how much more do we need to go? You need to go out in the field one more time and settle a couple things, and then we can,
Yes.
we can get out of this continuous thing?
One more.
One more? Promise?
One more, yeah.
Okay.
So our plan moving forward is, Brad is on the line now. We will coordinate directly with Bricolai and Beta, find a time where it makes sense for the field delineation. Soon after that, we'll schedule the survey crew, our survey crew, to go out, locate everything, and then resubmit the ANRAD with a peer response memo to Beta's latest peer review and move on from there.
Make sure you get your certified mail return receipts in too.
We have those.
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
You can.
Commission? Has the commission considered certified mailings as in no green cards? The certificate of mailing, I believe it's called. And I only ask because it was somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 to notify all the abutters, considering the size of the property.
I think that came up before.
Okay.
That did come up before. And for some reason, I can't remember. Yeah, for some reason, I can't remember. The town elected to continue with the green cards. And I don't know why.
Okay.
But I do know that did come up before.
All right, is it like, it would be a town warrant article?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I believe so, yeah. And I know that it was really frustrating, because we were trying to do things like, we were trying to think of things that do like electronically and stuff
Yeah.
that didn't, you know, because it's dumb for all the postage, who cares, right?
Right.
Right, just the point is that you have a record that you've actually done the notifications, right? So, you know, maybe even have a website you post it and have everybody
Sure.
come in, like, have a login and just like, you know, I mean, seriously, you know, just have someone log in and basically say, okay, you know, I have, you know, I put in a special code that's only mine,
Yeah.
right? That actually proves that I came and I read this thing, and I said, I've read it, that's it, right? Then you have, the postage goes away, right?
Yeah.
Only person who doesn't like that is the post office.
Right. No, it was,
We're funding the post office,
yeah.
basically.
And I know the post office wasn't very happy either. when
Yeah.
we brought it up.
Well, yeah.
So you had
we've
$5,000
done-
worth of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know
we
you-
did it in shifts, to
Yeah.
not
It's
overtax.
archaic, it's archaic, okay? In 2023, it's archaic,
Yeah.
and yeah, we should look at it. I agree.
So, I
We should.
appreciate you listening to me.
Yeah. Okay, I will take a motion to continue.
I'll give you a motion to continue the ANRAD for Tri-County Regional Vocational Technical High School to January 25th, 7:04 PM.
Second.
Second? Go ahead.
Vote to continue.
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 Continue?
Continue.
We
One
continued.
more time.
All
We
right,
continued. I don't
we'll
have
get it done.
gavel.
Thank you very much.
Fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you tell Megan she can come back? Sure, sure.
Right. Thanks all, and for that, we will go ahead and open up the NOI for 0 Bent Street. And I think we have Chris Lucas here with us.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Chris Lucas with Lucas Environmental. Just a brief update because we requested a continuance. We need the extra time to survey all the trees that were requested. That's been completed. We're hoping to have a response to comments possibly submitted tomorrow electronically, if not Tuesday, and the hard copies will be in within 1 or 2 business days. So if all goes well, you'll have everything early next week. And we believe we've adequately addressed all the comments and leave it to the board and staff and peer review to wrap that up, and just ask you to continue it to the next hearing.
Great. Thanks for the update, Chris. I appreciate it. Bricolai, were there anything from your end that you wanted to? Nope. All right. Any comments or questions from the commission? Great. And any comments or questions from the public? All right. So with that, I'll take. Yes. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so it looks like, I guess just to clarify for our citizens who are here, so that will be submitted for the updated work on looking at our trees here. And then once that's submitted, they'll have the peer, Beta and our agent will review that, and we'll come back for conversation for the next meeting on what they found and what steps are needed, if any more, to move forward. So. Thank you. So with that, I'll take a motion to continue our NOI for 0 Bent Street.
I'll give you a motion to continue the NOI for 0 Bent Street to 25 January at 7:05.
Second.
Thanks, and Richard, how do you
Vote
vote?
to continue.
Continue.
Vote to continue.
Continue.
Continue?
Continue.
All right, so the NOI for 0 Bent Street is continued to January 25th at 7:05 PM. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. I'll see you shortly.
Thanks.
Sounds good,
That
thanks.
looks like a closer too.
All right, we can go ahead and open the NOI for the proposed solar array at parcel 3 at 160 Maple Street. Do we have anyone here from 160 Maple?
Yes, Greg DeBona from Bowler. I think a handful of us are showing up online here.
Perfect, thanks, Greg.
So I'm joined as well by Dan Wells with LEC Environmental and Allison Fennell from Brown Legal.
Great, thanks, Greg. So I know that Beta just submitted their peer review on January 5th, so I'm not sure if you, on your end have had any time to look at that yet, if you wanted to provide any comments or updates thus far, or if you just need more time to review that.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. We did get it. We received it on Monday. So myself and Dan have spent some time just going through it, understanding the comments that were made. I will say we are very pleased and thankful to Jonathan and his team that got out on site and got the field visit done before the snow fell.
Yeah.
Because we were very concerned about that causing more delays, and it's very hard to go and identify flags when you're under 6 inches of snow. So, again, we appreciate that that was done. One of the elements that was identified in a couple different spots in the letter does require us to go back out in the field to relook at a couple of the areas where maybe the limit of wetlands needs to be rechecked and potentially flagged and identified by our team. So we're working on that right away. We're going to be out there ideally early next week, and then we'll send out our survey crew to re-identify any flags that had to move. So just wanted to let you know that's our plan. We're intending to get those items resolved and then provide updated plans with detailed responses. The peer review letter does have roughly about 24 comments in there relating to wetland areas and whatnot related to the plans. So it will be a little bit of effort on our end to get everything together and get everything resubmitted. There is one item on the letter that's actually under more of the administrative section. I was just looking for some clarity as to the level of detail the commission's going to be looking for, and it relates to the tree survey component. There's a comment about identifying all trees that are 1 inch caliper or greater, and as we've identified in our tree clearing plans that we provided with the original submission, we have roughly about 10 acres of trees out there, 10 acres total of vegetation that's being removed. I know that when we did the north application, I know it was a separate project, it was the north portion of the golf course, we did not actually delineate via survey every tree, every species that was above a 1 inch caliper. I don't recall if I had to actually ask for a waiver from that or how that took place, but I was mainly looking to find out, do we need to have that all surveyed, or is the exhibit I prepared identifying the areas of vegetation to be removed sufficient as far as identifying that demolition area?
That's a good question, Greg. Bricala, do you have any guidance on what we've done historically? I know we didn't.
So the commission does have historical precedent with various projects, Zero Bend Street being one of them, of asking the applicant to survey trees greater than 1 inch. Sometimes if the applicant has come to the commission and appealed that decision, I know historically the commission has deferred to a 3 inch or a 4 inch. But the commission has not gone higher than that. For the northern portion, I am not in truth recalling that either, Greg.
Yeah.
So that's what I have, Chair Hagan.
Thank you, Bricala.
I can, sorry, one additional comment. I can definitely poke back through all the files here and find more direction on that.
Okay.
If that would be beneficial.
One of the things that has happened is it's an extensive area where there are a great number of trees, and there's a lot of variation in the sizes of the trees because of different successions of, we have in the past given the applicant a break and said, as she said, it's gone 2 or 3 inches. Basically looking for the most mature trees just to try to see if we somehow save those, and, right, for the 1 inch, okay, but the bigger ones, yeah. So we have done that in the past.
It sounds about like a rather onerous requirement to go out.
Well, that's just that. I mean,
particularly if there's any.
From a practical standpoint, yeah, it's almost crazy.
Say,
yeah. Because you're going to walk through a forest, you're going to basically look for every 1 inch tree. Come on.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
I think a little slack on that would be appropriate.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, I remember one area that was really heavily forested, like really thick, and we just said, okay, everything 3 inches and above, forget it. We're just looking for the big ones, right?
That's right. We're just looking for the big ones.
Right.
I could agree with that.
So.
Can I ask what the purpose is of the survey?
Yeah, there's a point.
Like, are they going to cut down all the trees?
Well, if you're clearing, typically these are in cases where you're clearing land, Yeah, you're typically clearing, what are you clearing? Well, so you want to remediate, what is it you're remediating? Are you gonna remediate every single tree 1 inch and above? You're gonna remediate every tree 3 inches and above? What are you gonna do?
Remediate, you mean plant somewhere else?
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, that becomes part of your remediation, obligation. Right?
Okay.
Your obligation, your remediation.
If you're
debt.
clearing a wetland.
Yeah, right, so how big is
or-
that debt going to be?
Okay,
Right,
all right.
I got it.
I mean, you have to be
And how many acres are we talking? Did I hear 10?
10, I think 10, yeah.
Greg, is it 10 that's being cleared in the project? Is
Yeah,
that-
we've identified, after looking at the maximum extent of the tree canopy limits, so to the edge of the drip line, the edge of the tree canopies, including all that area, in various components around the golf course. It ends up being about 10 acres, well over 10 acres of trees or wooded area.
So,
And do we
although-
historically just require it in buffer zone for what they're doing, or for the full 10 acres?
classically, it's been the full 10 acres.
Okay.
But, I mean, if you want a Jobs for Franklin project, keep it at 1 inch and have them hire a bunch of kids to go out and count trees.
Yeah.
I'm just being practical.
Yeah, I could see counting the trees in the buffer zone, but outside the buffer zone, we don't even have
Yeah,
jurisdiction.
this is, sorry, I can't figure out how to raise my hand. This is
Thank
John
you.
from Beta.
Yeah,
Thanks,
please
John.
enlighten us.
My understanding of the bylaw, at least how we referenced it in our comment, did reference existing woody plants to be removed within buffer zone. And I believe it's referenced as such in the bylaw. I could be wrong, but generally, I'd be willing to bet it does probably reference buffer zone since that's, the commission's review area. So I believe the 10.5 acres was everywhere, if I'm correct, Greg. It was buffer
that's
zone
correct.
and non-buffer zone. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Okay,
Okay. And Greg,
That's correct.
Okay.
okay.
And Greg, do you have any sort of sense of what that looks like as far as acreage for buffer zone? Like,
If
would
I
that make it more
remember-
manageable?
Yeah, if I remember, we had roughly, I want to say 2 acres within the buffer zones of activity. And I actually, because I remember we're actually proposing somewhere about almost an acre of restoration within the buffer areas as well. So if we were to evaluate those 2 acres, most of which are already being actively used as part of the golf course, it spills into the fairway, et cetera. We could evaluate those areas if that was, the determination that we need to survey and pick up the trees. And again, I'm not sure if it's a matter of just doing a count or if actually the locations matter, because that's a substantial amount of difference in time and effort. Like, we could just go out there and
Yeah.
walk it and count the area
Yeah, but typically,
versus having to pinpoint them and then show them on a map.
yeah, but typically you do a statistical sampling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not gonna walk, well, if it was 10, you're not gonna walk through 10 acres. You're gonna do a statistical sampling at different areas. Basically, you're gonna take that as a representative sample and assume that basically is the population. Right, that's what we've done in the past. So like, okay, all trees over 3 inches, it applies to, 2.5 acres, right? So we basically take, say, 3 or 4 sampling areas, right? In like,
Right.
I don't know, 100 by 100 yards, whatever it is, right? 100 by 100
Yeah.
feet, right? You basically count those up. That's a distribution of trees, right? Okay, you have, and then just use that as an estimate of what you've got, and that's reasonable to do. But going
Yeah.
out and actually like, marking every single tree, I mean, yeah, right, okay, come back in 2027 and
Yeah.
we'll, when we continue this project here. So I'm just saying, come on,
Yeah, that sounds good.
right?
And Bricolai, from your perspective, is that's usually how it's presented from other applicants as well as just the,
Yeah, a transect sample is fine.
Yeah.
Typically, we do, it has been presented in the past with other projects to the commission, polygons on the plan sets of where the trees are located. So there is a rough estimation. So it just has to be shown as woody vegetation in these areas to accurately reflect existing conditions in the landscape. So,
Okay.
but you can, you can thread the needle with it. So that's
Well, excellent. Then we will work to get a good, I'd say, delineation, whether it's a series of stat plots and counts, and we'll find a better way to delineate that on our tree clearing exhibit, and go out there and do an updated count. And is it, and just to clarify, is the intent to still do 1 inch or above, or is it
No.
3 inches above?
Three.
Is
We'll do 3. We'll do 3.
You guys good with 3?
3.
Okay.
Let's do 3. That's reasonable. 1 is not reasonable.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, excellent. So thank you. That clarifies that, because, we do want to keep moving, and we want to be able to get the information back to you guys as soon as possible. But at the same time, we know that the deadline to be able to get information back for the 25th is on the 18th, which is not giving us a whole lot of time when we have to still do field evaluations and then mobilize survey. So I will just say that if there is an opportunity to simply just continue us to the February meeting, that would be ideal. If you can't skip a meeting, understood. I could still attend and just say where we are with our process, but I wouldn't have any probably new information that I could present by the 25th. And I think, Dan, there was one other comment we just wanted to quickly clarify, and I think it had to do with where we were seeing in our delineation where that stream had kind of developed and channeled by where the crossing is. And I just want to clarify that too, just to make sure that if the thought is we need to go further with our stream delineation, that we want to understand where that would terminate.
Yeah, could I, this is Dan Wells from LEC. Could I share my screen? I can give you a visual of what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Yeah, give us just a second.
And Jonathan, for your reference, it's just referring to W1 in the letter when it talks about the top of the stream that is kind of located in that Y-shaped wetlands right in the middle of the site. And Dan will explain it better than I can, but generally speaking, we find that the actual defined channel really starts directly where the existing cart crossing is.
Okay.
So it doesn't actually go beyond that point to the north. So from there, I'll let Dan explain
Sure.
it further.
All right, so I just highlighted Jonathan's comment. So you're just saying the bank should be extended to the north. So here's what it looks like. This is a zoom in of the purple. So the bank flags start on this side. It starts here and runs down here. And on this side, it starts. So there's not actually a connection. That's just for a visual. But this is what, I showed these at the first hearing, but this is what the crossing looks like in the spring, summer. And then, so here's the existing crossing. So this is just a real densely vegetated emergent marsh. You can see cattail and skunk cabbage. And here's the northernmost bank flag right here. So there's actually, even though the project does extend beyond that, there's no visible kind of bank channel above that. So that was my reasoning. So it just kind of, whether it's just an abrupt change in elevation, but above this, north of this point, there's no real stream to delineate. So that was why it was done that way. So, so I don't think it's appropriate to add more bank flags. So part of the, this is what it looks like. I'll zoom in on the plan sheet. So it's kind of odd how we calculate it, but this is actually BVW, even though it looks like this should be considered stream impact. So that's where those numbers are coming from. That's the reason. So.
Okay, yeah, and Dan, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you pulled up the pictures so just for the commission's reference and for the record, so when I was out there a few weeks back, obviously all the emergent vegetation had died off and there was substantial amount of standing water in that area. So, at first glance, it did look like, that reach of the stream could continue further north. But after looking at that photo in the regular growing season, you wouldn't have that level and that density of herbaceous growth if there was a constant, hydraulic gradient running through there.
That's right. Right.
So, I think given that, in my opinion, I think as long as the applicant just, documents it in a response to the comment, I'd be willing to, at least from the peer review side, accept that as a, adequate answer to the comment.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think so too.
Great, thank you for that.
Great, thanks, Dan. And thanks for the update too.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So those were really the only two items that we saw right off the bat that we wanted to add clarity to, and you guys have given us that, so I appreciate it. And the rest are just kind of in our court to follow up, do our homework, and then get some answers back to you all and come back at an appropriate time.
Great, thanks, Greg. Ricola, was there anything from your end that you wanted to add?
No, that was great. Thank you. Thank you for explaining all of that on both sides.
Great, thanks. And any questions or comments from the commission?
So there was a request to push it out.
To February 8th. I know we've done that previously. Is everyone comfortable with
Mhm.
just pushing it to the 8th to give them the time?
February 8th?
Sure. That's fine. Sure.
All right.
I just hope the weather holds
know.
for these guys.
Right?
Holds for them. It doesn't wash everything away.
No.
Oh, the flies away.
Right. Are there any comments from the public for the proposed solar array at parcel 3, 160 Maple Street? Awesome. Well, then, can I have a motion to continue the NOI for the proposed solar array, parcel 3, 160 Maple Street, then to February 8th at 7:00? Can we do 7:01? Is that what we'll?
I guess
Yeah,
it
it's 7:01.
would be the first one.
Nope, Ricola is saying no. Wait.
What, no?
You've already voted for a project at 7:01? Or I guess
For
you
February.
hadn't. That
For
was for
February.
the 25th, but next time you would have to default all the other ones. So I would actually just keep it at the same time slot
Okay,
that
so
it is now.
7:06.
Okay.
7:07.
7:07, okay.
7:06,
My
yeah. sweet.
PDF formatting didn't continue when I exported it. I apologize.
All good. So we'll continue then to February 8th at 7:06. So can I have a motion for?
I'll give you a motion to continue the NOI for the proposed solar array for parcel 3, 160 Maple Street to February 8th, 7:06.
Second.
Richard, how do you vote?
Vote to continue.
Continue.
Vote to continue.
Continue.
Continue?
Continue.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it. Thanks all.
All right, we are going to open the NOI for Lot 1 of 60 Spring Street. The applicant has asked for a continuance here, so they are not with us tonight, I believe. Ricola, any updates from your end that you wanted to?
No updates from my end, only that there should be a sentence there for recommendation to continue.
Yes,
to
thank you.
January 25th, 7:07. Yep.
Thank you. And John, anything from your end? I know you were on it while Ricola was out.
Yeah, I'd say largely both this filing and then the related one that's up next were relatively straightforward. I will say, as far as this filing goes, and this applies to the next one too, the wetland boundary was delineated well, and we didn't have any revisions to make to any flagging. The comments we had on the plans were, I would say, 90% administrative. So I trust that the applicant will be able to address everything.
Great. Well, then we look forward to hearing from them at the next meeting. Thanks, John. Any comments from or questions from the commission? And any comments or questions from the public on Lot 1 at 60 Spring Street? All right, with that, can I have a motion to continue the NOI for Lot 1 of 60 Spring Street? And that will be to,
25th at 7:07?
yeah, we'll keep it 7:07 then, right? Or we can do 7:06 because it won't be.
Wasn't the last one 7:06?
That was to February 8th. Let's do 7:07. 7:07. Making the call, 7:07. 125 at 7:07.
I'll give you a motion to continue the NOI for Lot 1. I'm sorry. Yes, for Lot 1, 60 Spring Street to 25 January, 7:07.
Second.
Richard, how do you
Vote to
vote?
continue.
Continue.
Vote to continue.
Continue?
Continue.
Great. The NOI for Lot 1, 60 Spring Street is continued to January 25th at 7:07 p.m. Now open the NOI for Lot 3 at 60 Spring Street. Again, the applicant has asked for a continuance, and John and Ricola have given us their updates. So if there are no comments from the public and no questions from the commission, I will take a motion to continue the NOI to Lot 3, 60 Spring Street.
Motion to continue the NOI for Lot 3 at 60 Spring Street to January 25th at 7:08.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks, Richard. And Richard, how do you vote?
Vote to continue.
Continue.
Vote to continue.
Continue.
Continue?
Continue.
All right, the NOI for Lot 3 at 60 Spring Street is continued to January 25th at 7:08 p.m. That will bring me to open the NOI for 121 Grove Street. I know we've got a crew coming in for us, so give us just a moment. Are they there, Tyler? They were all there a second
Do we
ago.
lose them?
Thank you. Give them just a moment to come in. Hey, John, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. We have just opened up the NOI for 121 Grove Street, so if you guys want to get yourself sorted, we can. Yes, please. We're moving along tonight.
So these guys are going to set up our presentation.
Great.
I'm John Shipe on behalf of Fairfield Residential. Thanks for having us here this evening. I'm here because of a notice of intent that we submitted. It's at 121 Grove Street. Just a little background, Fairfield Residential, we're a national builder of multifamily residential. This property is under contract with the owner, and I think you're very familiar with the process that we went through the last 18 months. We started with abbreviated notice of resource area delineation in November of 2022, and today there's an order of resource area delineation, the ORAD, that exists, that was issued by this commission in May of last year. We also did the test bits. Thank you very much for the help last fall. To recap where we are in the big picture, you're probably familiar with this, but this property is zoned industrial. And as we want to build a residential community here, we need a zoning approval. The permitting process for zoning in this area, in this industrial zone, is the comprehensive permit, Chapter 40B. So we did file, we started with a site eligibility letter that went to Mass Housing last summer, and we did get that letter. It was necessary for us to go through that process. We got that letter in October, and then we filed a comprehensive permit with the ZBA in November. We had a hearing with the zoning board already, and the next hearing with the zoning board is in February. So we submitted the notice of intent to you, and the notice of intent that we submitted was under the Wetland Protection Act. And we need to all be mindful of the local regulations and the local bylaws. The local bylaws are covered under the comprehensive permit that the Zoning Board of Appeals has purview over. All of the local bylaws are within the comprehensive permit and go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I think you're aware that we requested some waivers from a few bylaws in town, including some of the wetland bylaws. So the Zoning Board of Appeals will be the one adjudicating on the wetland bylaws. We're here under the Wetland Protection Act. At this juncture, and we developed a project on Dean Avenue, Station 117. This is just a quick picture of what that project, it was very successful, very proud of it. We worked with the town back then, and we think we got it done in 2021. Very successful. Just a brief overview, buildings surrounded by landscaping, a nice dog park, swimming pool, lots of facilities for extracurricular like the bicycles. I'm gonna let Brian McCarthy, our civil engineer, give an overview of the project and the stormwater management, and then Chris, whom you all know as well, will provide an overview of the wetland impacts, of wetland, the presentation of the actual NOI. And then I'm sure we'll have a conversation about the peer review. We did get the letter today, which is a scope and fee from Beta. So unless there's any questions at this point, Brian can speak.
That's great, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Good evening, Brian McCarthy with R.J. O'Connell Associates. We're the civil engineers for the project. So I'm going to give you an overview of starting with the existing conditions and then going through the proposed project. So this board here is the existing condition survey of the property. The site's approximately 31.5 acres. It's located in the industrial zoning district, and a small portion of the property is located in the Zone 2 wellhead protection area and water resource overlay district. So, and that area is in the northeast corner, right in here. There's no work proposed in there, no disturbance, and no development is proposed in that water resource area. The site's not located in any 100-year floodplain. There's no 100-year floodplain on the site, so no bordering land subject to flooding. The site is partially developed. There's a 3-family house with several sheds and parking area, access road all along Grove Street in the front of the site here. The site consists of wooded areas, bordering vegetated wetlands, and some mowed fields and lawn areas. On this plan here, the wetland areas are shown in that darker green color here. In those wetland areas, there are intermittent streams flowing through the wetlands, and we have an isolated vegetated wetland in the northern upland area. As you can see on this plan, the wetland areas and the intermittent streams run in a east-west direction, and they divide the site up into 3 upland areas divided up by that wetlands. To the north of the site is the Franklin State Forest to the north and to the west, and then to the south is the National Grid substation and transmission lines that run in this area. Currently, access to the site is from a couple of driveways that are located on Grove Street. And as you can see on this plan, showing the topography. The topography of the site basically rises from Grove Street here up to the highest portion in the northwest corner of the site. The elevations at Grove Street in this area is about elevation 270, and up in the northwest corner it rises up to an elevation of 365. Stormwater runoff from the property is basically sheet flow across the upland areas that goes into the different wetland areas into intermittent streams. And on the eastern portion along Grove Street, there is a portion of the site that sheet flows out into the Grove Street area and into the Grove Street drainage system. That's an overview of the existing conditions. And we're going to flip to the proposed layout and proposed project. So the proposed project, we removed the existing structures on the site that are close to Grove Street, and it consists of the construction of 5 multi-story residential apartment buildings. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these buildings will be a mix of 4 and 5-story buildings. The development also includes 2 6-bay parking garages located at each building. 2 here, 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 here. And there's a clubhouse that's centrally located on the site in this area. The clubhouse includes a fitness center and a leasing office. In that same area of the clubhouse, there's amenity space and a dog park and a pool. Parking is located around each of the buildings, as you can see on this plan. And there's be one access drive off of Grove Street, located here, with access drives around the site to the buildings and around the buildings. There will also be one gated emergency access drive located just north of the building along Grove Street in this location. There'll also be, at each building will have trash dumpster enclosure areas. One enclosure located at each building. Landscaping will be provided in the parking areas and along the access drives and throughout the site and along the site frontage. Pedestrian walkways will be provided throughout the site, connecting all the buildings together, and also connection out to the street where there's a future 10-foot wide multi-use path proposed along the frontage of this in Grove Street. I also want to note that there's approximately 3 acres, more than 3 acres of undisturbed wooded area that will remain adjacent to the state forest up in this area. As part of the project, we're also proposing to put in walking trails through the site that will connect to the state forest. And these will also include walkways that run through the wetland areas, one in this location here and one through here, and where they cross through the wetlands will be elevated boardwalks are proposed in those areas. The site layout itself and the access drives have all been designed to around the wetlands and to fit with that topography to the best extent that we can. Retaining walls will be constructed in areas to limit the amount of impact to resource areas. The project also includes 2 stream crossings for on-site access roads to gain access to these upland areas. These are located here on the southern end and also one here on the northern end. Stream crossings have all been designed in accordance with the Massachusetts River and Stream Crossing Standards. The boardwalks that I mentioned too there'll be some stream crossings here and here, and Chris will get into that in more detail. The next plan I just want to show here is the stormwater management plan. This is kind of a blow up of the southern end of the site. So it includes a whole stormwater management system designed to comply with the Mass DEP stormwater policy and handbook, and also to comply with the Franklin stormwater bylaw to the extent feasible. The system will treat the stormwater runoff to the standards required by Mass DEP and also to the standards required by the Franklin stormwater bylaw. It will provide groundwater recharge, and the system will reduce peak flows for each storm event up to the 100-year storm event. It also provides water quality treatment through the use of catch basins with deep sumps and hoods, water quality units that are hydrodynamic particle separators, and subsurface detention and infiltration basins, and surface area detention and infiltration basins. So on this plan here, the pipe network is shown through here with the catch basins. The bluer squares throughout the site are the subsurface detention and infiltration systems. And then we have surface basins located here, 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 and upper end, the northern part of the site. Again, subsurface infiltration here, 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 and here. So you can see it spread out throughout the site. Outlet pipes from these basins will have riprap splash pads to dissipate energy and reduce velocity of the flow. And a stormwater maintenance, operation and maintenance plan has been developed and will be implemented for the long-term maintenance of this system. The drainage basins, as I mentioned, are spread throughout the whole site, so you have a groundwater recharge from each of these basins that is really spread through all the future developed areas. During construction, we'll have erosion sediment controls installed to protect those resource areas and any discharges. And the controls will include compost socks, silt fence, catch basin inlet protection, filter bags. We'll have a construction entrance pads for anti-tracking, and then temporary drainage swales and a temporary sediment basin to be installed as well during the construction process. It also, as part of the project, we will be installing all new utilities throughout the site, including sewer, water, gas, telephone, electric. And all of those utilities will connect to the existing services in Grove Street. So that's an overview of the project, and with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Chris Lucas with Lucas Environmental, professional wetland scientist and soil scientist. I'm going to run through the wetland impacts and regulatory compliance and other aspects of the project. This is a graphic that we included in the notice of intent with the figures. It's not included in the plan set, so this has been blown up to 24 by 36 for presentation tonight. This plan is the wetland and buffer zone impact exhibit, so it shows the various color coding to match the legend here. To show you the impacts, we have 5 impact areas on the project. Brian alluded to, there's the southern access crossing located here, which is solely a stream intermittent crossing. There's no wetland associated with this. There's the northern crossing to access this portion of the site with buildings 4 and 5. There are inland bank stream impacts and BVW impacts. This is also where we're daylighting a large section of culvert. There's also very minor impacts around the pool and clubhouse. This is that wetland C area that was the former discussion during the ANRAD. So the impact area here is where it's been mowed. So I'll get into that a little bit more, but that's primarily that impact is where it's being mowed right now. And then we have 2 impact areas. It's the southern boardwalk here, which crosses over a stream and wetland, and then there's a northern boardwalk here, which crosses through 2 intermittent streams and the wetland associated with that portion of the site. The color coding on this plan, the boarding vegetated wetland permanent impacts are shown in green. Give it this in very little bit of dark green here. Temporary impacts are shown in a light blue. The dark blue is the IVW that was flagged, that's shown there. The intermittent stream bank permanent impacts are shown in an orange color, and the temporary are shown in a purple. And then we also show the 25-foot no touch for reference for the commission. For discussion purposes, shown in pink, that's the permanent, so you can see these areas through here. And then the orange is the temporary impact. And then we show the red is the 100-foot buffer, a dash line. So we felt that this exhibit was a good one to really understand where the impacts are occurring and the work, particularly for work in your 25-foot and the buffers and the impact areas. So this project itself qualifies as a limited project. under two sections of the Wetland Protection Act. The first is 10.533E, which is for roadway crossings to access upland areas of the site. The northern crossing is access an upland area here. We provided a detailed alternatives analysis. I'm not getting into the details here, but there is no other access to this portion of the site. We can get into that if you'd like under questions later. The other limited, and then also to access this portion of the site, we have a limited project crossing to access this. We have evaluated access through Grove Street, and it's not viable into this portion of the site. Happy to get into that if the commission would like at the end of the presentation, or we can discuss it later, but it is included in the package in detail. The other two limited project crossings are associated with the boardwalks. Per 310, 10.53J, boardwalks are allowed as a limited project. This specifically listed catwalks, footbridges, et cetera, as long as the structures are constructed on pilings or posts and permit the reasonably unobstructed flowage of water and adequate light to maintain vegetation. We originally had a 6-foot wide a boardwalk proposed in both locations. We minimized that down to 5 feet to reduce that to be a reasonable width and to comply with ADA regulations. We also raised it up. The original was much lower to the ground. We're proposing through the wetlands to be at least 3.5 feet above grade. I think that's more than adequate for light. It's also a good height for critters crossing underneath, more than adequate for the streams, so we fully comply with the stream crossing standards there. So we fully comply with that as a limited project. All the stream crossings, whether it's the access roads or the boardwalks, fully comply with the Massachusetts stream crossing guidelines. That includes the bankful widths, the openness ratios, and all the other parameters. We are proposing 3-sided box culverts at the crossing locations here for the roadway. Again, the details are in the notice of intent, but we fully comply, which we know go third-party review. There are no impacts to land underwater, watering land subject to flooding or riverfront, as none of them exist on site, so there's no further discussion. Inland bank, we fully comply with the performance standards because we are meeting the stream crossing guidelines. And so because we're meeting them, that's standard for A6, we fully comply. It also, because we comply with that, states that we don't have to do wildlife habitat evaluation for the streams. For the areas of BVW, again, we fully comply with all the performance standards, all outlined in the notice of intent. Again, we have the 3 impact areas. The project itself, we only have 580 square feet of permanent BVW impact associated with these 3 areas. Additionally, we have 585 square feet of temporary impact. That's to construct the areas for the crossings. Those will be restored as they were before. So they'll be revegetated, planted, et cetera. We have a detailed mitigation plan. There will be a loss of the 2,015 square foot wetland here. As we agreed in the ANRAD, we agreed to mitigate that. We're proposing a 5,875 square foot mitigation area. So that's 10-to-1 mitigation for the BVW under the state. That's also 2.3-to-1 if you included your locally regulated isolated wetland, which we're not obligated to do, but we agreed and we've done that here. The mitigation area being proposed in this area here, where we are daylighting a culvert. This section of the stream is culverted. We're going to daylight 180 linear feet of that stream and create a naturalized channel connecting it, restoring that, which will then flow into the new crossing, which will meet all applicable standards. We did conduct a wildlife habitat evaluation for the BVW per 310 CMR 10.60. A wildlife habitat evaluation is required. The simplified version is required for impacts under 5,000 square feet. We're required to assess at each location where we have BVW. So we do them here, here, and both boardwalks. Based on the requirements of the simplified evaluation, we don't believe there'll be any adverse impacts on important wildlife functions listed under 10.62. The forms are included as an appendix. As we noted, there's a detailed alternatives analysis presented in the notice of intent in section 7. Additionally, for mitigation, in addition to the wetlands that we're restoring, we have a few other functions to this. Correct numbers. We are proposing there'll be about 41,000 square feet of temporary impact within the 25-foot no-touch zone. those areas will include grading and some other work along those lines. Those areas are going to be restored when we're done. They're going to be reseeded. As you know, a lot of this area is agricultural, not all of it, but a lot of these areas will be, except for the crossing locations where we have to cross through the 25-foot. We intend to restore just under 42,000 square feet of the impact to the 25-foot buffer. We're also going to restore almost over 113,000 square feet of the 100-foot buffer zone. Those areas will be restored, so they won't be continually mowed and such. When they're done, they'll be restored to more of a natural state. So that we're proposing a wildflower mix for that because we think that's appropriate for the area. Hopefully, wildflower mix will bring in more bees and things along those lines along the mitigation. We're also proposing, in addition to this, there's roughly around 12,500 square feet of the wetlands now that are being actively and legally mowed and maintained. We propose to stop mowing and maintain them when the project's built, and those areas will also be restored. We're proposing to reseed them, and we believe that will allow a more natural meadow to populate and eventually convert over time. So there's an additional 12,000 square feet of BVW restoration being proposed with this project. So we're cognizant of the scale. We think that we've got significant mitigation proposed here. And you know, with that, I think pretty much sums it up in this. John, if you have anything else you want to add.
That's our presentation, so glad to answer questions or discussion, or have a draft set of conditions.
Yeah.
You're funny, John. I like you. So thanks, John and Chris, for that presentation. That was great to see.
2 questions,
Plan.
if I may.
Yeah.
How many units are you putting in?
330 units.
The town of Franklin has a project to revitalize Grove Street. Does that continue on down past your project, or is it in before your project?
Yeah, it's coming up from Washington Street, I believe.
Yes.
Might be like halfway. I'm not sure the exact extent, but it does not come up this far.
Okay.
One of the things we're talking to the Zoning Board of Appeals about is, that multi-use path that they're also extending.
Yep.
There are options here as we work out details with the Zoning Board to possibly either reserve space for it or contribute to the construction of a path along our frontage. And, it'd be great if a master plan were to connect that to the SNET trail, as well as trails that we are proposing that will connect to the state forest. So there are options available.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. Now, one of the things that we as a commission need to discuss tonight is that the ZBA has requested, or as part of the ZBA process, and their review of the application, is that they've requested from us a letter with our opinions on the waiving of our local bylaws. So the requests for the local bylaw waivers are all of our bylaws, so they're requesting to waive Chapter 181, Chapter 271, and any associated regulations. And I'm sorry, before we jump into here, Bricolai, were there any comments that you wanted to make before we start our discussion on?
No, that was it. I was just going to be transparent on behalf of the applicant of what they were seeking waivers from.
Yep.
I will add one amendment that even though the applicant is seeking waiver from any replication or mitigation, based on their presentation and what they have put into record tonight, that's great. I would definitely recommend the commission note that the applicant has volunteered on the record that they would be willing to replicate and mitigate, and they have included that in their plans when providing a response to that section of our bylaws. Knowing that, I did just want to project out a timeline for the commission. So tonight was your opportunity to be presented with a project and to opine on the waiver request. Chair Hagan, it is your job as the new chair to draft the letter back to ZBA, and then at the January 25th meeting, you will all review it and vote on it, and then it will go to the ZBA in February.
Thanks, Bricolai.
So I guess I have a question, if that's all right. My understanding, I thought, was that if it's a friendly 40B, it's not a waiver, it's automatically waived. Is this,
So.
what am I missing?
And so Bricolai, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or John, feel free to as well, but I believe it has to do with our the number of low-income housing that's already in Franklin were above that 10% mark. So then the ZBA has the option to, to actually decide whether or not this counts as a friendly 40B, since we're already at our 10%, so we're not required to accept it. So the town can then make that a decision whether or not. Regula, am I correct with that? It's my understanding of the process.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's
And
ZBA.
for historical precedent as well, Mike, other 40Bs have come before us, specifically, for example, Franklin Heights Parcel B, and even though they were able to waive it, they chose not to. So even if it is their right to waive it, oftentimes applicants will choose not to work cooperatively with the community that they're in.
Thank you.
I count 44 requests for waivers. Is that the correct count? I mean, that just seems like we're giving a lot of waivers for one project.
It might be about that. Yeah.
So
And we
in-
have some,
in the
say,
drainage-
pipes and drain manholes.
Now, I drove down Grove Street day before yesterday, and the southwest corner of your project, there was an actual stream coming onto Grove Street, and it was such volume that it was going right over a drain, a town drain right there, and the road was down to a one-lane road. And now we're adding 6 buildings, really counting the rec center, and all kinds of impervious area. I'm just concerned. I know you mentioned a 100-year flood, and if this past week wasn't a 100-year flood, well, it's probably the second or third one within a year. So I'm pretty concerned about that.
The stormwater system that we've designed is designed to make sure that post-development, there's not an increase in runoff from the property compared to pre-development. So those are constraints that are very typical and normal, and we would not be making any flooding condition worse, and in fact, likely mitigating it a little bit. And also, it's been pretty wet.
Yes, it has.
It has been very wet.
It's been very wet.
Like I said, it seems to me 44 waivers is an awful high number.
We were asked by the attorney for the zoning board, a pretty good, and the peer reviewer for the zoning board, to actually go through and elaborate and be very specific. So in an abundance of caution, we made sure that every nuance of the regulations we were very explicit about, said we'd like a waiver from them. It is a very conservative approach. At the risk of looking onerous, we wanted to make sure that there was no doubt that, afterward, there was something that we didn't ask for a waiver from.
Because there were, I can't see it right off the top of my head, but there were a couple that were very kind of general too. That
We made our best effort to respond to the actual narrative of each of the 2 bylaws and 1 regulation, I believe, 181 and 121. I think.
271.
Yeah.
Yep.
okay.
So to follow up on Roger, the kind of storm that we had last week, it's probably not going to be exceptional. It may be more the norm as global warming continues. How would your stormwater plan have responded to the type of rain that we experienced in the last 2 weeks?
Could you repeat that question?
So my first contention is that the kind of weather that we've experienced in the last couple of weeks is probably going to be more the norm than the abnorm.
Yes.
So with all the stormwater proposals you put in place here, what would be the impact if we experience the same kind of water flow, that we have in the last 2 weeks?
Well, again, I think, as John had mentioned, you know, when we do this analysis, we look at the rainfall events for various storm events. In the analysis, we analyze that on the existing condition with that rainfall event, and we apply that rainfall event to the proposed project. And from that, we design all of those stormwater basins, infiltration basins, detention basins. And as you can see, there's a lot of locations where we have these storage basins on the site, right throughout the whole site. So the stormwater will be collected and stored in each of these areas throughout the site. And there'll be control structures on those devices to let it out at a rate that's less than the rate that comes off the property today.
So we had about 4 inches of water the other day on top of a snowbank, maybe 4 or 5 inches. Could that have handled that?
Could this handle 4 inches? Yes. So the 100-year storm event is 8.9 inches, I believe? Yeah. In a 24-hour period. So this is designed to control the runoff and the rainfall of 8.9 inches in 100 years.
Which is probably what we had between the 5.7 inches that we had
Assuming
Franklin of
the
snow
snowbank
melt
and
plus
the rain, yeah.
the 4 inches of rain, yeah.
And more coming this week.
Yes, another 2 inches coming tomorrow night.
And what is meant by general waiver from application of additional standards? What's general waiver?
Which one are you looking
I
at?
believe I'm on page 7 of 11, second box down, if you will. And there's a couple statements similar to that that would say general or section 181-1 purpose.
General waiver from the application of the standards and procedures of the local bylaw. I think we were just covering anything that might be in there that wouldn't be under the state regulations. Because we're looking to permit it under the state regulations and not the local.
So my understanding that the waiver we're talking about here, the commission we're supposed to approve, discussing, provided, this is all the waivers that we're looking at?
So this is all the waivers that they're requesting from the ZBA, and so starting on page 7 is
It's
specifically
just
what
not,
they're requesting.
some of these
for
didn't look like
wetlands.
that we vote on them. I mean, are we voting on manholes?
We're just
No,
making
no,
a recommendation to the
we're just
ZBA
making
on
that.
our
Yeah.
specifics. So if you go to page 7, that's where chapter 181 starts. So
Right.
from page
Yes,
7,
okay.
Yeah.
page 8.
Okay.
Well,
Through the end there. So, I mean, do we want to go through these one at a time and sort of highlight anything we have concerns about that we want to bring to the ZBA? So what I'm
What?
hearing is that stormwater is a concern, you know,
Some we went
for
through in
us.
the last 2 weeks, yes.
Yep. And certainly even under the Wetlands Protection Act, we can request a stormwater review, which I feel pretty strongly about. So stormwater is certainly one of our concerns. What else do we have? So obviously things like, you know, local filing fees, if the ZBA is going to approve it, that's gonna be something that's not
Yeah.
applicable anyway, so, I mean,
Have we had 40Bs, friendly 40Bs come before us? And how have we,
this
what's
is,
the precedent?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah. I mean, basically, they got waivers because they were friendly 40Bs. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they came to us as a courtesy, right? I mean, basically, and we.
Well, it sounds like it's not a courtesy this time.
Yeah.
We can recommend against it.
I mean, I think there was one a couple years
Well,
ago off
yeah,
Park
because,
Street.
yeah, but the point is that, again, we've reached the mandate. At that point, we were told, the town was told, erroneously it turned out, the town was told and it was actually propagated that we were not at our target, when we actually were. So that made a lot of people angry because basically got under the wire, under a false pretense that it was under the quota what we weren't.
Not by us, right?
No, no, no.
Okay.
No, no. This was some time back.
Okay.
This before COVID,
Sure.
before COVID, pre-COVID.
So link at this to like looking at, 181.5A here, no activity shall commence without receiving or complying with a permit issued pursuant to the local bylaw.
That's pretty general.
That's very general, yeah. So if we waive that, they're saying that it's be subject to only the permits according to the Wetlands Protection Act and regulating filing fees. So if they're gonna get the approval from the ZBA, they're still gonna need to have their permits in place before any work can commence. It just won't be local permits, it will be those required by the state.
Basically, right, you're basically saying that you're essentially limiting the town's ability to step in if they see something that they don't like.
Yeah.
No, under the Wetland Protection Act, of course, the commission would still have all the normal rights and responsibilities, in fact, to
Under wetlands protection, not-
issue a stop work order or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not the local.
Yes, it
Nothing more
will only be for
stringent, nothing more
state-specific.
stringent, yeah, nothing more stringent.
So all the buffer zones are in our local bylaw, right? So you can go 10 feet from a wetland under the Wetland Protection Act. And that's what we're going to do here, right?
4.2.1 talks about 0 to 25 foot, work between 0 to 25 feet. I mean, how do you feel about that one?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That the buffer zones are all in the bylaw, so they're going to be waived.
My personal opinion is that I think this requires some study on our parts.
Yeah,
I
we're
don't
not-
think this is something we can do in a meeting right now. I think we need to take this list, we need to go back and familiarize ourselves with what specific bylaws, what are the specifics of the impacts, what are the impact specifics, and then come back and have a educated discussion. I would not feel comfortable doing that right now. I would want to go back and look through this first.
I
Since
agree.
I've seen this for the first time.
I would agree.
Yeah.
We're all looking at this, and it wouldn't
Yeah,
be
I
fair to
don't-
you to make a
I don't
snap
think it's,
decision.
yeah. I don't think it's, yeah, we have to do some stuff.
Bricolai, when is our letter due to the ZBA?
Well, they didn't, so I watched the ZBA recording and they didn't give you a deadline. But they are meeting early February, early to mid-February. I agree. I can definitely see where 2 meetings is a very conservative timeline for you all to review this, commune back together and provide a response. So I really defer to you on how you want to draft this letter. So that's totally fine if you need more time.
Informed. We want to draft it informed.
Yeah.
Draft an
Yeah.
informed
And
plan.
so procedure-wise, if we're to review this, just, trying to be respectful of their timelines as well. So if we're trying to review this, we review it next meeting, I draft up a letter, but we still then need to vote on that letter, correct, before, at a public hearing, before we can submit it to the ZBA?
Correct. And I've been under advisement to advise the commission that further review of the project should be limited until ZBA renders a decision. To that point, and I can get into it later, there are a few other nuances that we can continue review on, but for the entire scope of the project, we need to hear as Conservation Department and Conservation Commission what the applicant is waived from, so then we can have a holistic view of what we are reviewing.
Yep. And John, I think where you're probably going with this is that, just to clarify, that once the scope and fee is paid, that the agent in Beta will continue the review of the project and looking at state jurisdictional resources under the Wetland Protection Act, so that that process will start, and then they'll know whether or not, after the ZBA makes their determination, whether or not we then go back and look at local bylaws as well. So the process will still start once the scope and fee is paid. It'll then just be whether it stays as wetlands protection jurisdiction or state, or sorry, or local. Is that where you were going with your question? Okay. I was seeing the wheels turn.
Yeah,
so
that's fair. That's totally fair. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't want to hinder anything else.
Yep. And John, just to be clear, and I'm sure you're fully, aware of this anyway, but should the ZBA deny the waiver request, that the scope and fee would then change based on local bylaw scope and fee?
Very likely, yes.
Yes. So if the ZBA decides to deny, then we'll have to reassess scope and fee.
Right,
and go
and
forward.
to be determined whether we are then working with the zoning board or with you directly, however that, to be worked out.
Yep.
But yeah, I understand entirely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure we're all on the same page, so no one was surprised with anything there. Well, I agree that I think we all need to study this a bit more and have some more solid opinions on what we need to do going forward. So why don't we look at this as a timeline? We all go home, we do our review, we come back ready for a discussion on all the points that we think are applicable to put our letter together. I will make sure that letter is together and ready to go, so that, and sent out for your review, so that we can then come back and vote on it on the so discussion on the January 25th meeting. We'll vote the letter in on the 8th, then we'll get it to the ZBA right after that. Is everyone comfortable with that timeline for us?
Sounds good to me.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Yeah, please do.
So one question I think maybe is on all our minds is impact. We have the bylaws for a reason. I'm just wondering if anyone in either on the commission, the agent, or you all, have you done projects like this in the past so close to wetlands, and how did they go?
Yeah, I can tell you that we have, and it might help to frame it in, a lot of towns do not have a local bylaw.
Right.
And so, under the Wetland Protection Act, you of course can build right up to the setback, right? You can build right up to the buffer zone. Correct. There are other restrictions in special areas, riverfront areas are different. But by all means, we do projects that, although we try to avoid, we do build in some respects right up to the, you mentioned 10 feet of the wetland. We build right up to the wetland as necessary.
Yeah.
The advantage in a large project like this is, as we have done, we've replicated the actual wetland impacts. And then there are a lot of areas, remember we walked the site, there's areas that are wetland that are being mowed today. And those, we're not bending over backwards to do this, we're not martyrs here, but those are areas that are mowed that are now going to become, wildflower mix. So to answer your question, yes, we've done projects.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a local bylaw, we ask for a waiver from that. If there's not a waiver, a local bylaw, then we're just according to the Wetland Protection Act.
Yeah. Thank you.
We knew the 25-foot would be a concern. And just going back to this, just ask you to take a look at this as you're reviewing this for your next hearing. Obviously, you've dealt with crossings before. There's going to be impacts in the 25-foot, and I know the town has a process for that. We have the two crossings, excluding the isolated wetland, which we all knew during the NRAD process, once that was determined, was going to disappear. We're mitigating for it well beyond that what's required. The other impacts in the 25-foot are for the crossings. The total impact, permanent impact from this project in the 25-foot buffer is going to be 9,790 square feet. So, we're not building this entire project up to the edge of the wetland. We're cognizant of that. We want to avoid adverse impacts. But the total permanent impact is under 10,000 square feet in the 25-foot, when you exclude the crossings, which are limited projects. So, we've taken that to account when we're looking at the overall project. It is an impact. We understand that, but we feel it's de minimis on the scale of this project when we look at everything else in addition to the mitigation. So we would ask you to consider that when you're delivering.
To balance, yeah.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
And we've outlined those numbers in table 5-2, and,
Yeah.
you know, so it's written in there, so it's clear, and that's why we prepared this graphic, so you can see exactly where these impacts are. And again, these orange areas in the 25-foot are gonna be restored. We just need those areas to be able to construct, you know, so there is an impact, but it'll be temporary, we'll restore it. So we're cognizant of that, and we are trying to work with this commission on these points. But waiver request is there, but we feel we've done a good job in addressing that to the extent we can. And I think we've done a pretty good job. And like John said, again, we also have a graphic in there. You can look at some of these. You can see the forest tree line, so you know what's forested versus a field that's being mowed regularly. So we take that into consideration too, particularly around the pool area. A lot of this is mowed right now. So yeah, there's a lot of pink in this area, but again, it's not high value compared, you know. We've been able to avoid a lot of the 25-foot forest areas. So just take that into account. You know, it's not black and white.
Yeah, thank you.
Have you calculated how many square feet, including parking lot and building and walkways, this whole project encompasses?
For the entire site or in buffers?
For the site. In other words, all that impervious area is gonna be dumping water somewhere.
We have all of those numbers, yes, we calculate them, because it's what determines how much we need to size and volume of the underground detention. So that all goes into the HydroCAD calculations and determines the volume of the underground detention and therefore the outlet rate of water.
Is that number included in our packet somewhere?
Probably buried in the HydroCAD.
So we submitted a stormwater management report that has all of those calculations in there. That includes the analysis of all the impervious area and how it's analyzed and run through the system. That's all part of that whole stormwater management.
Okay, so those numbers are in here.
Yeah.
And did I see one of the waivers that you're looking for a waiver not to pay stormwater fees in the future?
That was, yes, that was under the local bylaw, so we asked for a waiver.
Oh, okay.
And if I could mention, a lot of the waivers that are listed under stormwater are really related to the fact that under the local bylaw, we need to submit the application to the DPW. The DPW has to issue an approval of it, and the fees related to, so several of those things are related to just having the local review done by DPW. We're asking for a waiver from those things. The big picture is, it is designed in accordance with all the treatment and mitigation requirements of the local bylaw and the Mass DEP stormwater policy, so we've met all those standards. It's just specifics related to the local review process and the fees and those type of things.
So you'd never be paying a stormwater fee, or just the process of
Well,
installing?
there are some fees.
Because I know there's a lot of people in town that don't like the stormwater fee, and they're all paying it. And I wouldn't want them to see that here's a project that we okayed and they don't have to pay stormwater.
We've asked the zoning board for relief from those requirements. I believe we'll probably be making up for that with other fees that we pay, the peer review fees. Another example is the, what's the impact fee? What was it on the replication? The $250,000? The local filing fee would be $250,000 for filing under the local, your local bylaw. So we request a waiver from that. I mean, that's a lot of money. And I'm sure, I don't know how that's handled normally, but
No,
that's just another example.
I mean, it's just good business. I mean, he's not, I'd do the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think what you're talking about, there is an annual fee that everybody that has impervious throughout the town pays.
If I recall, I think on Dean Avenue, we may have had that. I think we asked the zoning board for relief, and they may ask the same questions you're asking, and they might say, well. So we'll work that out with them.
Yeah, good luck
I'm
with
just
that one.
saying, it would make sense for him to request it,
Sure.
regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just good business.
But just to clarify, we're talking about the annual fee,
Right.
and that doesn't negate the fact that we can request a stormwater review
Right.
from a wetland scientist
Right.
to look
Yeah.
at the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
stormwater as far
Right.
as the actual construction of the project.
That's independent, yes.
Right.
It's independent, and,
Yes.
yep.
So, Madam Chair, on that point,
Yes.
am I interrupting?
No,
train
go
of
right
thought?
ahead. Yep.
The scope and fee that Beta provided,
Mhm.
it includes a stormwater review?
Yes.
You're probably aware that going through the zoning board, they also have a peer reviewer.
Mhm.
If there's any chance to avoid some redundancy there, R.J. O'Connell was a very professional firm. Hancock Engineering is also, I think that's who that they are using, Hancock. They're also a very reputable firm. Maybe that one portion of Beta scope could be carved out and let the zoning board provide you Hancock's review. It would save some money, and it would likely save a little bit of controversy between 2 and now 3 different engineers having opinions on these things, but just a request.
So,
However-
I mean, we can all certainly discuss this. My thought on the process is that the ZBA has an engineer specifically looking at the stormwater, whereas when we request a stormwater review, that's from a wetland scientist. So that would be looking at 2 different perspectives, looking at the report. So I know that their reviews may have some redundancies, but I think with a different perspective on it, I think it would still be valuable for us to have that information from the Conservation Commission. I sort of look at it as when, as I'm a pharmacist, so as a pharmacist, if I'm treating a patient, say I'm looking at a patient with a cardiologist, and we're both looking at the same patient, but with 2 different perspectives. And so they're not gonna tell me to not review this patient because the cardiologist is gonna look at it, because we're gonna be looking for, although we're looking at the same patient on the same medications, we're looking at it in 2 different ways, and we're gonna come up with 2 different, opinions and 2 different solutions to work together in a holistic approach. So I feel, from my perspective, that's how I would see this, as a similar way, looking at this project holistically, especially where it's such a large project. I feel, from my perspective, I think it's important to have a wetland scientist looking at that stormwater. But certainly, open to discussion if you guys feel differently. I'm happy to discuss further.
Well, just maybe I'll scale back my request. I know Beta will be providing a review from a wetland point of view. It sounded like their scope, from what I read, very similar to what I used to do when I
Ask
was
Beta to make a
practicing.
determination. So ask Beta to make a determination, to say, okay, that's already been done.
I was going to say, maybe
Yeah.
Beta could
Fine.
tell you,
Yeah,
hey,
fine.
what we will be doing,
Yeah,
Yeah.
fine.
depth to groundwater, estimated seasonal high
Yeah. Here are
groundwater,
20
2
things,
foot or
and
4
10
foot
of those have already been
separation,
done. Check, check,
pre
check, we're
versus
done.
post,
Yeah.
hydrocat. They might tell you, we, Beta, are not going to do anything different than what
Right.
Hancock is.
From the scope, and therefore it's less expensive, of course, that makes total sense. Less expensive, of course, that makes total sense, of course.
If that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
If they tell you something different?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, that's only common sense.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's a good analogy. I understand your analogy, though.
Just the whole,
Yeah.
holistic
Yeah.
approach, and,
Sure.
yeah, I think especially on a site this large, but agree if there are redundancies,
I mean,
I'm comfortable with that, but I think there'll still be other things that.
They should
No, that's
coordinate
fine,
what they're
that's
gonna
fine,
do.
yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
Yeah.
Sure, sure. But I'm saying, if it turns out that Beta can come back and say, that's kind of silly, don't ask, you're asking us to do the same thing. Well, we should take that into consideration.
So just to clarify, we are making a recommendation on just the chapter 181 and chapter 271, not all 44.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Just the ones that
I'm
pertain to.
sorry.
yes.
That's actually not, I'm sorry to interrupt just before that's actually not correct. So there is significant stormwater infrastructure proposed within the conservation jurisdiction, which is why that packet includes all of it. So even though you do not have jurisdiction over the stormwater bylaws, you still have significant say in what is reviewed for stormwater because it's within your jurisdiction, even if there's waiver from local bylaw. Because they're state jurisdictional resources. So that's why it's together.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Under the Wetland Protection Act, if you file a notice of intent, yes, it includes drainage calculations. And they need to comply with the Mass DEP Stormwater Management Bylaw, guideline. Yes.
Thank you for that. So yeah, so your homework is to review all of it.
Okay.
And we'll come back with, ready to discuss what we want to make as our recommendation to the ZBA. Rika, is there anything else that you want to add from the discussion here?
Busy week.
Yeah.
Back to school.
Yeah, just clarification on the scope and fee. I had anticipated the stormwater kickback. I do, if it helps the commission just holistically, you know, often all of you talk about historical precedent. You've always charged for stormwater review, even with friendly 40Bs. So that there is historical precedent for that. I understand ZBA is also reviewing stormwater. That is also standard. I have coordinated with Gus, the building commissioner, and we did discuss internally of having ZBA go with Beta to save the applicant some cost. ZBA did make the ultimate decision to stick with their engineer despite that. So internally, we have tried to get coordination to cause less burden on the applicant, but respective boards do respective boards things. So
Okay. I guess that's different too.
I just
Sorry,
need
forgot that
I
they
just
were-
need direction on that so I know what I can do internally on the project management side.
Yep. I forgot the ZBA is not using Beta, which complicates it.
Right.
May I speak?
Yes.
I'm not sure what you're deliberating on right now, except, as Chris pointed out, there is the option of seeing if maybe Hancock would perform the review for this commission as well. As a reverse of what Rika Lai said that she spoke with Gus about, that option.
No, we always use.
The only caveat that I have to that is we still have to delineate some outstanding wetland resource areas, and Beta has been with us since the beginning of the project. So I feel like it would actually be a deficit to the commission to switch peer reviews midway through the process.
Yeah.
She's right.
Yep. And we'd probably end up with more scope and fee at that point because they would have, you know, a lot of work to get caught up on the project if we switched everything over to Hancock for that. Yeah.
I think we need to go home and read.
I think there has to be more coordination between different divisions inside this town.
It
That
is
would have been helpful.
possible if you wanted to ruminate on the scope and fee as well. You know, we can discuss it at the next meeting.
Yes, we will. We will do that.
Can we go back to ZBA and request them reconsidering?
They've started.
They've already started. Okay.
If it would help expedite that, we'd be okay with Beta performing the wetland review.
Okay.
If you have we would much prefer Hancock do the stormwater review in accordance with the DEP stormwater management guidelines, because they're pretty strict. They speaks to when you're near a wetland. We would much prefer if Hancock just did that, just so we end up with just one set of peer review comments. If that is not acceptable, then if you just have a brief conversation with Beta, or somebody has a brief conversation with Beta, and maybe scale back their stormwater review, or they, as a professional engineering firm, they probably see exactly. I'm sorry, I know they're listening right now, so I don't know if they can speak on this, but if they could tweak it so that they're not being redundant with what another professional engineer would be doing, we would be okay with that. We will provide the funds necessary regardless of what the dollar amount is, and we just ask you return any unused funds just to expedite that part of it.
Yeah.
So-
Can I throw that to John and see? John, I know you're. I don't know if you're.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, so the only thing I would say about that is, you know, I understand what the applicant is saying with, you know, potential redundancy in peer reviews. I actually just got finished on a peer review in the southeastern part of the state where, you know, went through every board and commission. There was about 6 different engineering firms reviewing the project. And that, you know, went as well as you can imagine. But the difficulty with, you know, kind of segmenting out, you know, the stormwater side of things is, you know, we would be comprehensively, you know, if we were to do this review like we did others for Franklin, like for example, like Franklin Heights, that 40B, we did the review for stormwater for the Concom because it wasn't reviewed by the planning board. You know, once we start going down that path, it's it's really hard for our professional engineers to really parse out too much of the review, because that engineer's name and, you know, licensure is on that review. And for them to accurately do the review, they need to go through the HydroCAD calculations. They need to look at the test pit logs. They need to look at the BMP design. They need to look at routing, TSS spreadsheets, etc. So once you really start to break it out, I think it really gets difficult for the engineer to, you know, they can certainly provide a broken up review, but I think it gets difficult for them to provide a review that they can really stand by and that serves the commission. I would say especially on a site like this where there's so much jurisdiction, you know, because we're not just looking at areas within the buffer zone, we're looking at areas outside the buffer zone that eventually discharge to jurisdictional areas. And given how much jurisdiction there is on the site, you know, it's my opinion, and I think Beta's opinion, that it would be, you know, difficult to really break up the review like that. That said, if the commission does still want to retain Beta for the stormwater review for the commission, you know, there could potentially be some avenues for us to maybe work collaboratively with Hancock and review comments maybe before letters are issued. You know, I don't want to create any situations where we have, you know, too much disagreement between peer reviewers and then disagreement between the applicant as well. So I would just, you know, pass that along as, you know, consideration for the commission.
I wish I had thought of that. I think he's right, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Certainly the review that Hancock provides, we will be responding to it, and I think it's a great idea to provide a copy to you for Beta's review of their review, I guess, right?
Right, yeah.
Right.
Coordination, yeah.
And it, you know, it's within our bylaws anyway that, you know, any of your scope and fee that is not used will go back to you.
Oh, sure, yeah,
So,
yeah.
John, does that work with you, that you'll just receive, you know, the letter from Hancock as well, and if that aids in any way in Beta's review?
Yeah, and I think what I can do to maybe provide a more definitive answer is, so I work very closely with Gary James at Beta, who does, you know, essentially all the reviews for Franklin for the planning board on the stormwater and civil engineering side. Let me just run this approach by him, since he'd ultimately be the one reviewing it.
Sure.
And maybe we can flesh out kind of this discussion and come to an agreement at the next hearing, if that's amenable to everyone.
Yeah, that's good.
That's great.
That's good.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
John, we appreciate it.
No problem.
One last question, if I may.
Yes, please do.
John mentioned Franklin Heights, and I was thinking about that too. That's something that occurred several years ago. I'm just wondering, has that gone well? Are there impacts to the wetlands that we're aware of, or?
No impacts. So
Okay.
they have, they did their test pits. They actually went through the NOI process and then came back to ask for test pits. So they did all that work, and then they started some clearing. But as far as impacts to wetlands, again, not yet. They just started, but they did extensively or sit down quite a bit ad nauseum, I would say, with John and I to develop some clever stormwater BMPs to make sure that the wetland complex that surrounds that area and the isolated vegetated wetland are protected from any stormwater runoff. It just occurred to me you're probably asking recently with the most recent rains. I haven't heard anything, but if you are concerned, I can send someone out there in my stead, since I'm not quite signed up for field work yet.
That would be interesting to find out. Yeah, especially with, I mean, it's an unusual situation, but if anything's going to show up, it's going to show up now. So, yeah. Sure.
And there's an A and a B. I know we talked about B recently, but A has been there for a few
Yes.
years. I'm just
Correct.
wondering how
Correct.
that has gone, you
Correct.
know? Like,
You're right.
if anybody in the, you know, town administrations or DPW or anything is aware of it.
I haven't heard anything.
Okay, good.
There are some problem areas around town, but that's not one that I or Derek has really heard about.
Okay.
But you could always give Bill a call. I'm sure he
Okay,
knows.
thank you.
Thanks, Bricolai.
Mhm.
All right, well, I guess with that, we all have our homework. John's gonna go back and look at that beta review process on their end, and we will go back and look at the waivers so we can come back on our next meeting on the 25th to further discuss that and get our letter drafted. John, was there anything else from your end that?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and request the money from Fairfield.
Okay.
San Diego office.
Yep.
In order to just move things along, I'll probably just go ahead and request the full, I think it's $12,000 or something it's sum up to.
That sounds about right, yeah.
We agree that the scope is likely to get scaled back. And I know you're going to have a conversation with Jonathan. He's going to clarify with his engineer. Or in fact, the full, I think it was $4,000 for stormwater. Maybe that'll just be applied to review of Hancock's review. However that works out. I'm just going to go ahead and request that the money be provided. And I also request, at your earliest convenience, if the money's in the account, if you could go ahead and ask Beta to proceed with the review that's not under question, right?
Yes, yep, and they absolutely will, once the scope and fee is in place.
Yeah.
The agent and Beta are ready to move forward with the review process for Wetland
Right.
Protection Act jurisdiction.
All right. Thank you very much. It's not a small project.
Yep.
Appreciate all of your time combing through, as you intend to do with the waiver list, so we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks, John. And any other questions or comments from the commission?
No.
And any questions
Thank
or
you.
comments from the public, as this is a public hearing? All right, with that, can I have a motion to continue the NOI for 121 Grove Street? We're up to 7:09 PM for the 25th.
I'll give you a motion to continue the NOI for, where is it? Grove Street to the 25th,
7:09.
7:09.
Second?
Thank you. Richard, how do you
Vote
vote?
to continue.
Vote to continue.
Continue?
Continue.
Thank you. The NOI for 121 Grove Street is continued to January 25th at 7:09 PM. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is the end of our public hearings. That brings us into our general business. So for our MBZAs, we have 111 King Street. Do we have anyone here from 111 King Street?
No,
Okay.
it's a ratification.
Thank you. Yep. So this is a ratification for an emergency authorization for 3 storm damaged trees that had fallen on the property's fence. All trees will be cut with stumps left in place. It's been communicated to the resident to ensure that the tree company mobilizes on soft earth with mats if needed to prevent rutting. Anything else from your end, Bricolai? The pictures
Nope.
are up there. Yeah. Any questions or comments from the commission? All right, can I have a motion to approve the MBZA for 111 King Street?
Give you a motion to approve the MBZA ratification for 111 King Street.
Second.
Vote to approve.
Approve.
Vote to approve.
Approve.
Approve?
Approve.
Thank you all. The MBZA for 111 King Street is approved. And our next MBZA is for 74 Elm Street. So this is an MBZA modification to our recently approved MBZA from November 16th and ratification of an emergency authorization. The property owner provided revised information on December 12th indicating that the certified arborist identified additional hazardous trees that were in need of removal. If you remember from this project, it was that there was a lot of trees that needed to be removed. I remember Richard questioning. But when we looked at the pictures, we could
Looked
better
like
understand
they were all real.
Yeah. So there are now a total of 37 trees that are considered hazardous and were proposed for removal.
We'd have to be paying the bill for that.
Yeah, right?
Package
So
deal.
you can see, if you have any questions, the list is below of the additional trees. But we're just looking for ratification on the MBZA. Any questions from anybody?
No, so we looking for an approval?
I'm looking for an approval.
approval for the MBZA for 74 Elm Street.
Second.
Thanks, Richard. Richard, how do you vote?
Vote to approve.
Approve.
Vote to approve.
Approve.
Approve?
Approve.
Thank you. The MBZA for 74 Elm Street is approved and ratified. All right, so we are down to our permit modifications and extensions. I'm sorry, Brickell, I didn't ask for any input on either one of those, but I'm assuming we're good, so. So we're looking at 515 West Central Street. So the applicant has requested a continuance to January 25th. Brickell, is there anything you want to update on that one for us?
No, it's my understanding, well, not my understanding, I know you all voted to approve their last permit modification for the retaining wall. And then at the December 14th meeting, they had communicated that they would give you updated information for the pervious pavement. They're just a bit behind with the holidays, so they haven't finalized those yet. So.
Great, thank you for that. So then I guess we will just go ahead and, can I have a motion to continue the permit modification for 515 West Central Street?
I'll give you a motion to continue the permit modifications to
January 25th.
2020,
It's,
January 25th, what? Just on 25th, okay.
Second.
and we don't need a time.
Vote to approve.
No, right, exactly. Second.
Yep, and
Approve.
vote to
Approve.
Approve.
Vote to approve.
Approve.
Continue?
Approve.
Thank you. We approved the continuation of the 515 West Central Street permit modification. Now on to permit modification for 25 Forge Parkway. Do we have anyone here from 25 Forge Parkway?
Okay, you have me.
Yes, we do actually have someone. Yeah, we do have him here too. Very glad. He's just getting set up real quick. So sorry.
I guess.
Plus one. I know he's been very patiently waiting. Thank you. It's been a long.
Oh, you are there. Okay, great.
No problem.
Thank you.
I didn't know if you wanted to turn it to your agent first, Madam Chair, or...
Brickell, do you want to give a quick update first? And
I'm sure he will give a much larger, more comprehensive presentation than I would. So.
Perfect.
For
I'll
the
kick
record,
the ball back.
Fantastic, thank you. For the record, Phil Cordero from Allen and Major Associates, representing the applicant at TMC. We represented the project here with the commission during the initial filing. What we're asking the commission to consider is an amendment to the order of conditions that we have in place for the development of 25 Forge Parkway. Quite frankly, the commission may recall we were permitting this addition to the property. We were modifying our parking. We were putting in some new stormwater. That was the crux of our project that was previously approved.
Yep.
This was high bay warehouse, so sort of an industrial-based usage. The tenancy is, we've not been able to outfit it, quite frankly, and the owner is looking to seek to use this now as office space. So we have requested a site plan approval through the planning board. But as part of that office space use, we need, in order to comply with zoning, provide additional parking spaces on site, which we're seeking to do on the southerly portion of the building. As part of that, it's necessitating some additional work on the easterly side of the existing building and just off of the parking tray, which falls in jurisdiction to this commission within the 100-foot buffer zone. What we're asking to amend the permit with is the ability to add a sidewalk along the easterly portion of our building that will facilitate an egress door from the existing building with the increased occupancy load. And in order to accommodate that sidewalk, we do need to grade in that existing area to allow for that width of the sidewalk to occur. I'll remind the commission that this building, where I'm pointing, is actually lower than the wetlands. It actually slopes towards the building. So we're actually pushing the slope away from the building to allow that sidewalk to be installed. And then a drainage line will be installed underneath there to facilitate some runoff condition for utility purposes. Because of the existing pavement, we are expanding our stormwater chambers to accommodate the existing runoff condition. We're adding approximately 16 chambers to the stormwater collection system. Everything else is the same. So short stroke totals, the sidewalk is approximately 382 square feet. The area that's in question, basically sandwiched on the east side of the building, totals about 4,900 square feet. Most of it is already cleared and altered with the slope that is there. We do have some additional clearing that we have in the southeast corner, about 420 square feet of, I guess, new clearing. So that's the intent, that's the full scope of work. I'm happy to discuss it with the commission. You know, we can continue to comply with all of the initial conditions of the order as published to the local bylaw. It really is just the mathematical changes that hopefully I've outlined for you here tonight.
Can you just remind me what that slope looks like coming out of the wetland?
In terms of
Grade of the slope?
So it's really about a 2-to-1.
Okay.
So it's a fairly steepened slope, and under its current condition, we're going to mimic that 2-to-1 and simply shift its position laterally.
And access to the new parking is through the existing parking lot for, I understand the walkway, but,
Yes, so
Okay.
confirmation, so the existing entrance is here off of Forge.
Okay.
It continues to the back. The new entrance will be here where I'm pointing.
Okay.
It is a dead-end parking lot, so everything stormwater-wise is fully contained, routes over to the stormwater system and is treated. Everything, our system, apart from volume, which that's why we had to add the additional 16 chambers, water quality treatment, TSS removal, recharge values, all of those metrics are met. The planning board, of course, will undergo their typical peer review, under the site plan review guidelines, so it'll ultimately get finalized.
okay. Bricolai, do you have any comments?
No jurisdictional or administrative comments based on the proposed work. I do believe that this is work that would have been approved anyways in the previous order of conditions. I did just add a comment in there. I know I try to guess the response of the commission, if you will, when I write my agent report. So I didn't know if you wanted to inquire about replanting of native trees at another location on the property. That was my one comment.
Yeah. Phil, do you have a spot on the property where you think that might be feasible?
So I'm aware of the comment,
Mhm.
and I'll give you the commitment to work through your agent to facilitate that comment, but we are space challenged in terms of where we can actually introduce trees in a beneficial manner. You know, obviously we have our landscaping, we have the existing trees through here that we don't want to alter. We have plantings along the northerly portion of the site. So we're happy to commit to the opportunity to do it and maybe request the opportunity to walk the site with the agent and identify if we can introduce some additional trees.
Something in there, yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Bricolai, do you have capacity to walk the site with Phil and look at that?
It doesn't have to be
Yeah,
today.
I would.
Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah, I
have to
was
be
gonna say,
today
I
or
would
this week.
Push that out to growing season. That's fine. Yeah.
Sometime down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Any comments or questions from the commission, concerns? All right. Well,
Straightforward.
yeah. If everyone's happy with that, then I will go ahead and take a motion to approve the permit modification for 25 Forge Parkway.
The motion to approve the permit modification for 25 Forge Parkway.
Second?
Richard, how do you vote?
Vote to approve.
Vote to approve.
Approved.
Approve?
Approve.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you for your
Phil.
time this evening.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
I looked at that site, the one that was up there many years ago.
Richard's
So
favorite
I was
project.
fascinated by it to see where it goes.
Right?
I'm sure you were.
This is getting tiresome.
It's gonna plague you for the rest of your life. You're gonna get up in the morning, look in the mirror and go, oh, I feel good.
Phil, you again?
I drove him crazy.
Richard-
He had to go to the nut house.
Richard, do Do you mentally need a break from?
No, we can do it.
So we're on to our violations for 305 and enforcements for 305 Union Street. We're recommending a 30-day extension on the enforcement order for.
Are we ever going to is there any feedback on that situation? Are we just going to do this for the next 3 or 4 years?
30
Okay,
It
anyway.
is in DEP's hands. You
Huh?
are all conservation commissioners, and you all have the right to contact, should you want.
Okay.
Duly noted, thank you.
Duly noted, yeah. I'd like to make a motion that we extend the violation and enforcement for 305 Union Street for another 30 days.
Second.
Vote to approve.
Approve.
Vote to approve.
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 Wonderful.
Most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Richard, would you like me to draft a letter to DEP?
Yes.
And I will add that to my to-do list. I will draft us a letter
Strong-
to DEP from the commission.
Wouldn't it be
Strongly
funny if
worded
it's
letter.
It'd be funny if it's been done for months, right?
You should add specifically how many 30-day extensions they've gotten.
I will have to look up that information.
Yeah, I'm just.
It's been a lot. It's been since I started, so.
You should write it because you'd be way more tactful than I have intended to be.
All right. On to our minutes from December 14th. Does anyone have any questions or comments on our minutes? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from December 14th, 2023?
Vote to approve the minutes from December 14th, 2023.
Second. Vote to approve.
Vote to approve.
Approve?
Approve.
Thank you. All minutes are approved from December 14th, 2023. We just have a couple quick discussion items and comments. So, Bricolai, do you want to jump in on the discussion items here?
Yes, so both of these discussion items are events that happened while I was on leave. So one, Heaton Place, 8 Jackson Circle. The Conservation Department received a phone call or an email about a partially felled tree that is on conservation land, but it is falling towards a resident's property. John did go out and look at it at the request of Brian DeBerner, and John noted that he believed if the tree actually continued falling, the root ball is partially out of the ground. It may knock other trees down or fall and hit the property owner's deck. Brutus did go out, our tree warden, with one of the certified arborists that we have at DPW. That would be Anthony Brunetta or Derek Adams. He did go out with Anthony Tony at this point and disagreed with John. He believed that the surrounding trees would actually hold the snag, and then it would just become your traditional widowmaker.
Even with.
All the same. What?
Well, even with all the rain that we've had, because let me tell you something, some pretty large trees have come down where I am, in Ellis, where I am frequently, and going through those properties back there, some very large trees that have never moved in the 8 years I've been there have come down because the ground has become so saturated.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I think these are very extreme conditions at this point. So if we have something like that, and we have all this rain and this continues, that's gonna be a problem.
Pictures of it.
So, in order to mitigate future problems, it's a discussion item, and I have it listed as a tree removal, but really it's a purchase request at this point to remove the tree since it's on a conservation area. I do not have that invoice in front of me right now.
Do you have an estimate?
We've done this before. Usually they're just administrative requests, and then I come to the commission and seek ratification, but they're only a couple $100. I think that the minimum, the lowest that I received was $360. So we do use contracts that with DPW, so we tend to get a bit of a discount.
Yes. I mean, I think that's perfectly reasonable to come out of the conservation budget if it's on conservation land, so.
Yes.
Everyone in agreement?
Yes.
Yep.
Agreed.
Go for
Cut
it.
it down.
Cool.
Yep, thank you.
Yep, so then plugging right along 110 Louise Drive. This one I am very sympathetic towards. So there's a single family home being constructed at 110 Louise Drive, and it's completely out of any jurisdiction by the commission, except I don't know my cardinal direction for this property, but except down the street to the left of the property is buffer zone and then a wetland at the end of the cul-de-sac. And there's a storm drain right in front of the 110 Louise Drive. And with all the rain that we've had, unfortunately, there was a washout at the site, even though there were adequate erosion controls in place. And so there has been a thin film of sediment and illicit discharge into the wetland down the road. So I received plenty of emails from both John, Brian, and the contractor. The contractor did reach out to me specifically and wrote me a very, very apologetic email, which I don't get very often, explaining how he was on it within 24 hours. He actually did go into the wetland and pull back most of the sediment. He did leave a thin layer, which is to our advantage because we don't want him, digging down too much, too liberally. And then he has doubled his erosion control on the slope. So he has check dams going down the slope. So if sediment breaches this wattle, this one that's down here, down gradient will catch it. He's also trenched the sides of the access driveway. So water channelizes and will cut into that instead of having a washout. And every night he puts hay bales in front of the access drive. So
Okay.
he went above and beyond. So this was put on the agenda just as a means to communicate to you that it happened in the event you receive phone calls from neighbors or if you hear it through the grapevine.
Yeah.
No, that's
I'm
what
glad
she
he
did.
went above and beyond, and it sounds like he really
Did.
Yep.
No, she stepped up, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So I think we all, you witnessed the storm more than I did, but it was quite a storm. So
I got to swim in it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It was in my basement. I did send Bricolai a picture because
I went snorkeling.
In your basement.
Yeah, I have a, between the back of my property, it came through my fence and then all the way to the street in between behind my neighbor's yard, but like my own personal new wetland complex. It's never been there before.
Well, let me just-
Quite impressive.
I've been riding through Cedar River Audubon now probably 2-3 times a week for the past 8 years. I've never seen it like it is now. It is literally underwater.
Yeah.
The entire, almost half of the reservation is literally underwater. Never seen in 8 years, never seen Charles's High. Crazy.
I don't know if you are often up my end of town, but they actually had to close down Elm Street going into Medway because
Yeah, that
the
bridge,
Charles was so high
wow.
that it was not a safe water flow rate for the culvert there.
Well, I thought they're there's a bridge that's a shortcut up to Village Street from my side of the town. And they had to close it down because they thought it was going to be washed out. It was an old bridge.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just going to, they thought the cars were going to be on it. Had to take them away.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting times. All right, well, that's it for our discussion items. Thanks for those, Bricolai. Chair Commission comments. Friends of Franklin, is there any update from you guys, Michael?
Yes, so Pat sent out an email. He's having a meeting on Friday, 19th January at noon. I can send the email to anybody that would like it. It's got a link to it's going to be a virtual meeting on Zoom. In the email, he also talked about a couple of things. One is a reminder about that B program. Sign-ups have started, and there's still a few slots left. So I think I took it from the email that most of them were taken. And also, we're going to be scheduling a cleanup event in later January to be determined. So we're moving.
Sounds great.
Cleanup event of?
Uh,
Well, there'll be
to
plenty to
to be
clean up
determined
if you
where,
look
but
around.
like one of the, probably, you know, Delcart or something like that, I would imagine. As he said in the email, we're pretty sure all of our areas are in need of TLC right now after the windstorms that we've had.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Awesome, thanks, Michael. So master plan update is that we are on the section where we're basically looking for public outreach. I had tentative plans for my public outreach with my subcommittee that we were gonna do the cultural section at the library in conjunction with one of their cultural events that they were running. We thought it was a great idea, and then we were gonna do, the SNET does, the Rail Trail Committee does a walk the third Saturday of every month, so we were gonna combine with that. And I got some guidance this morning that we are not supposed to be doing, it's best practice not to do public hearings on weekends, which I'm pushing back a little bit on that. I'm gonna see where we go, because our whole discussion with master plan is that we're not reaching out, we're only reaching a certain, with, like, we did a survey, we had about a little over 700 people respond to the survey, which is I would say average, but probably smaller response for the size of Franklin. But, you know, when you look at the demographics, we're only reaching a certain amount of people. And so, you know, my response back was, well, as a parent of young children, it's really hard for me to be actively involved in the town, and it takes me a lot of effort and a large funding of babysitting money to be able to come here and do these things myself, but I'm passionate about it, so I do it. But not everyone else has the capacity for that. So, you know, for someone like me, a weekend morning would be more of an ideal, where I'm already at the library with my kids and I can swing by and, you know, have a quick chat.
I don't know why somebody would think that the weekday would be better than the weekend, for God's sakes. I mean, let's think about that for a second. But whatever.
It's archaic Massachusetts. It really, it's a town clerk rule. It's like a Massachusetts open meeting law.
Yeah. So, well, Nancy did.
You don't meet on week.
Yeah, did chime in with her guidance. So because someone else recently requested it, so, you know, she reached out to the Attorney General Office for guidance, and they say that the open meeting law is silent with regard to holding public meetings on weekends or holidays. However, best practice is not to hold public meetings on weekends or holidays when access to public buildings may be limited, and when the public does not normally anticipate the scheduling of a public meeting. So I'm just gonna see if I can go around best practice and see what kind of outcome we get. So
We don't always have to be best.
I mean, are you talking like at night or
I'd say
during
that was
the day?
carte
So
blanche
for
to
the
hold it on
library
the
event,
weekends.
they have two different events that will be during the day on the Saturday in the library. So I talked to Kaylee Keating, who is one of the children's librarians, and who's amazing. And she was really excited that, you know, we would be interested in coming in for this. So she said, you know, we could set up in the room right across so that everyone that's at that event then has direct access to us to have this conversation with us. So I feel like that's worth going around best practice, that we already know that we're set up for success there. And then maybe we look at maybe the SNET not being, you know, an option, but we wanted to be out in open space for the open space conversation with the public, so it seems like an ideal. So I don't know what the best answer for that is. I'm going to talk to the subcommittee and see what we want to do, but I'm feeling pretty strongly that the library event is a really good idea.
Because when you think about it, there've been, a lot of towns now talk about, well, let's change voting to Saturday because that's when everyone's available,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. So I'll keep you updated where we land with that, but that's my current
We know what you're
battle.
I think we need to hire a Ben Franklin impersonator to go in and have a talk with the town clerk about why towns work for the citizens.
Nancy didn't tell me no, so I feel like I'm okay.
I think that would be hysterical, but okay, I didn't say that.
Is it easier to get forgiveness and permission?
Absolutely.
Well, you know, next week is
I don't
Ben
have-
Franklin week.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
There you go.
it's a whole slate
There
of
you go.
activities.
Was meant to be.
There you go.
All
There
weekend,
you
all
go.
week long,
Yeah.
mostly at the History
At the
Museum.
library.
At the
The library
Franklin
named
Historical-
after Ben Franklin. At the library, right?
And
Okay.
Doesn't get any better than that.
Okay, I'm just saying, okay.
I like that. Gives me pause to think about something to do with the Children's Museum above at Franklin next week, so
Franklin.
thanks for that.
Alan Earls is organizing Ben Franklin Week. Seriously, there's
The
a reading
grandfather of commerce.
autobiography, all kinds of good stuff.
I'll
Check out the
I'm
Observer.
excited. All right, well, that's pretty much it for me, so we'll have that update. We had the survey results, which actually I did send to Bree-Guy, and I'm not gonna remember the numbers off the top of my head, but of the priorities that were all listed, and people could add their own, maintaining open space and recreation activities was the number 2 ranked priority for the citizens that answered said questionnaire. So we obviously know that this only reached certain people in a small percentage of the town, so there's limitations to the data, but it was nice to see that that was a priority for people. Yeah, so we'll go from there. As far as timeline, we're looking at a September wrap-up of master plan, so still got a road to go, but we're making good progress, so if anyone wants to join, I will certainly send out the dates of our
Have a huge
input
wrap
sessions.
party.
Right? Yeah.
Huge wrap party, huge.
It will be good. It will be good. So that's it from me, Bree-Guy. Did you have anything from Natural Resource Protection Manager update?
Yeah. So, yeah. So first, I'm sorry that my agent report was late. It's been a whirlwind trying to come back and working part-time, and with all the storms that we've had, these are all excuses, but I do apologize that it was late. So this is a new update that I'd like to include in here, since I'm starting a lot of initiatives with the Conservation Department that have significant overlap with the commission. So I'll try not to keep you too much longer. Michael, there's a spot for you in the bee program, so please register. I have not seen you register yet. So definitely a spot.
No pressure.
Please register.
But pressure.
So but we are at, there are 30 responses right now, but there are several staff that don't count. So there's spots
Staff doesn't count, is that what you just said?
Yeah. So technically there's 40 spots, 5 for Franklin Public School students, 5 for town employees that are residents. I didn't want the town employees to fill up the entire registrar because they knew it was coming ahead of time. So I segmented it out to leave space for residents to be able to come to the program and benefit. To that point, after speaking with Mike Downey, we did decide to open it up to the greater Massachusetts state for Zoom. So in person or registering in person, denoting that you're coming in person is important on the registration form, I should say. So there's a question there that asks if you will be attending remotely or not. So Michael, if for example, it may not behoove you to have a certified habitat and you still want to attend, maybe Zoom is a better option. I would hope that you would have a certified habitat. So
thank you.
Yes. So that's plugging away pretty quickly. A plug for that is February 1st, the honorarium for residents to apply to be a stop on our bus tour will open. That honorarium is $400. And again, it's through a grant. So this is money that I received through the Working Forest Initiative and Forest Stewardship Cooperative through DCR. And it is the hope that this money for residents will be able to be put back into their own habitat that they've been designing, selflessly this entire time. So that opens February. Also February, the first Thursday of every month, Friends of Franklin Conservation, Michael's invited. You're on that invite as well. DPW, Ryan Jetty, and myself, and the Commission for Persons with Disability, we are having our first accessibility working group. So it's not exclusive, anybody can attend, but those meetings will be hosted on the first Thursday of every month to start identifying areas around town, specifically rec or open space areas that could use more TLC when it comes to accessibility. So very excited for that. Yes, and I think that's about it. I did want to make a broad educational statement, since I have been speaking to a lot of residents lately, wetlands have poor infiltrating soils. So that is why you will see flooding. That is why roads are being topped, but eventually it will dissipate. So, oh, and I guess one other update, you will be seeing the Prospect Street. I'm sure you are all aware of the culvert replacement at Prospect Street. Correct? I
Yes.
can't see you
Yes.
guys anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
thank
right.
you. So that will be coming to you down the pipeline, no pun intended.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Oh, one other one. Sorry, it's been about a month. I did escalate within MAPC to get a response for our open space plan.
Yay, our now 2024 open space plan.
Our now 2024 open space plan. So I did receive a response with that escalation, so that's great.
Good.
So we should be getting a review letter. I'll give it 3 months.
Were they like, oops, we forgot about it, or like, we're just working on it?
Emails weren't going through. So, and they are busy. They are
Yes,
busy.
I'm sure.
But
Yep. Okay.
yes,
Great.
that is what I have.
All right. Well, thank you, Rika Lai. Anyone else have anything they? All right. Can I have a motion to close?
I'll give you a motion to close.
Motion to close. Motion to adjourn. Undebatable.
Or adjourn.
Undebatable.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's it. Thank you, everyone.
Hi.
Recording stopped.